Let's do a call to order here. It's now 6:18. 6:18, all right. Heidi, can you do a roll call so we can establish a quorum?
Here. Here. Floyd.
Here.
Dick.
Dick, can you hear us?
Yes, here. Couldn't hear her, just heard you.
Okay, we'll have Heidi speak up or something, or I'll turn my computer a little bit more. Okay,
I
so
can't stand this owl. I just cannot fathom it. Everyone talking into a computer, I can understand. Anyone not talking into a computer can't hear. Simple as that.
okay, so Sheila is in, I'm sorry,
Malawi,
Malawi.
South Africa. Left Monday night. I said, did you tell Dick? I mean, did you tell the She said, no.
Well, I expected to call in any minute. Okay, all right. Let's move on. We have a quorum. We have 5 of us here. We have a quorum. Okay, so that was the first thing to do. We had scheduled on here a discussion of TFC term and mission, following up on an action item I had from the last meeting. Kate and I did have a talk, but because of Steve's very busy calendar, we were unable to get the meeting between Kate and Steve. So we're going to defer that topic until next meeting when she's able to get together with Steve. Steve, Kate, do you have any other comments you want to make now, and then we'll move on?
No, I guess only, obviously the direction comes from the board. The only one thing that I can say, is that there is a clause that, Roy pointed out to me that is in the current charge. And I understand that, I'm sorry, Roy, I don't have it in front of me. Do you mind paraphrasing, or if you have it in front of you, reading?
Yes, hang on one second. When you get to it, or the paraphrase is, basically the paraphrase is that the term of the Tax Fairness Committee is 3 years, or until a proposal for action by the town meeting on senior means tested exemption is made.
Correct. So I understand that the unintended consequences of that made, at least Roy, and if I'm not speaking for you correctly, I don't mean to put words into your mouth, but based on what you told me, had the inclination that the thought was that was the only thing that you all were looking at. And so what I want to say to that is I apologize if that's the unintended consequences of that phrase. I could totally see where it comes from. What I can tell you is that this charge was written and drafted 6 months before the town meeting even made the Tax Fairness Committee. So at this point now, we're much more than a year old. And the only thing that I had talked about with the board, with the select board, was tax fairness, because that is the only thing that I felt that I had any degree of sort of subject matter expertise on at the time that we were talking about it. And so I understand that their emphasis surrounding all of the conversations about forming tax fairness were about that. And that is simply because, that was what I was bringing to the table for that. But you all have talked about a number of things in addition to that program. And while I can't speak for the board as a whole or even any of them, I don't think that the impetus behind that statement was to limit you. It was just that was the focus at the time it was written. So, please accept my apologies for putting it in there. I'm the one that drafted that with Steve. And again, it was just sort of a sign of the time. So if anybody is finding that statement being in the charge is giving anybody angst or confusion, I would be happy to bring a revised draft back to the board, explaining the situation and asking them to either strike it or change the language.
Okay, and that she has kind of summarized what the essence of our her and my conversation were, we need to, let Kate talk with Steve / the board to get that item just clarified in terms of what it means. So thank you, Kate. I think at this point, let's set the issue down and we'll pick it up next meeting after you've had a chance to review with Steve and the board. Okay?
Yes, sir.
All right. Somebody signed out.
Oh. Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Well, all right.
All right.
I don't know.
Okay. All right, let's move on then. Approval of minutes. Thank you, Heidi, for very good, very readable minutes. I enjoyed them. Okay. First of all, the minutes of February 1st. Were there any comments or corrections to those? If not, do we have a?
I wasn't there, so I can't.
Okay, all
I
right.
make a motion to approve the minutes by Heidi Leclerc.
Okay, I'll second the motion. All right. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. We have to do a roll call. So, if we have, yes, please do a roll call.
I can't vote. I wasn't at the meeting, so I
So
can't
you can't
vote.
vote on that.
But 214.
This is
214.
2-1.
This is
2-1.
2-1. Yeah, sorry. Sorry. But no, I wasn't there, so I can't.
Yes, right. So she can't approve the minutes because she would
Right.
be faking it. Right. Okay. So, yes.
I'm sorry. It's so sad.
Susan?
Yes. As we cry.
And, Dick?
Dick?
Yes,
Okay, thank you. All right. Moving on to the minutes of 214, which Debbie was at and did send us. She read it and reviewed it, and I thank both you, Heidi, for capturing her complex
That was
thoughts.
bad.
Okay. It was bad. It was complicated. All right, and thank you for reviewing it. Okay. Do we have a motion relative to the
I make a
214?
motion that we approve the 214 minutes written by Heidi Leclerc at the 214 meeting. I'll second the motion.
Okay. Is there any discussion? I had one minor correction. You saw that extraneous something 101, class 101 or something like that got in there? You did fix it?
No, I will.
Oh, you will fix it. Okay. If you will fix that, then I'm fine with the meeting minutes. It just looked like an extraneous 3 words again.
So do we need to amend it or
With
approve it with the modification?
the modification.
the motion now needs to be as per adjusted.
As per adjusted. Okay. All right.
So I make the motion as per adjusted to approve the 214 meeting minutes. I'll second it.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay. If not, quick roll call vote. Yes.
Yes.
Debbie?
Yes.
Dick?
Roy, you might have to go.
Dick, can you approve?
Yes, yes,
Okay, thank you. Okay. Thank you all. All right. I wanted to just spend a minute and go over the action items from the last meeting on the 14th. I was to follow up with Kate on relative to this SME discussion and proposal that we had. Kate gave you a quick summary and we're going to defer that until the next meeting. All right, so that's where that stands. Roy and Susan to work on updating the sign wording to appeal those who don't file taxes but may qualify. Did anything happen in that space?
You're talking about,
The signs at the 2 ends of town.
they were going to randomly put it back on in between other things, because we just had the town meeting or the town vote today,
Yeah,
what,
right.
yesterday. So they'll put it back up. It will rotate again to say, if you have
Okay.
questions, contact the tax, contact LCC.
Okay.
In that discussion, though, apparently a lot of people were coming to the tax office and a little bit confused. So there was some discussion about maybe just putting the flyer, like leaving it at the post office and posting it on Facebook and that kind of thing. and listing those two locations in lieu of those lighted signs, because they were coming to the assessor's office thinking something's going on with the taxes, and they weren't reading the part about come to LCC. And now that, because they aren't referring people specifically to Clinton to do their ARP now, and that they're just saying contact ARP to find other locations, it's kind of not as relevant as we
Okay.
originally
Okay.
thought.
All right.
So we're trying to just get the flyer and get the Facebook posts where they can have links to let people understand circuit breaker and understand that they could go get their taxes done at ARP, but not specifically involve LCC.
Okay.
But LCC is having a tax work-off meeting,
Class.
Adam is doing that. And so, that's another avenue. If people come in for that, we can also talk about circuit breaker with that, just to create the awareness.
All right. Next one was Susan to talk to Kelly about putting flyers in the circuit breaker in the assessor's office. Forward thoughts to Kelly. Was that part of?
You're talking about just making the flyer.
Right.
So the flyer is gonna have we were waiting for the image to be approved.
Right. Which
Which she did, and I got your email. So that's what I'm saying,
Okay.
is we're gonna take that and just put a link that says, please contact. So that flyer will go in front of the assessor's office and at the post offices.
Okay.
And wherever else we can leave it around town.
It might be a good idea where March, April, where the taxes are going out, excise might be going out. You might want to put some in front of the collectors, on the collector's counter across,
Oh,
Yeah,
good point.
okay.
with-
Across from the assessors.
Yep.
Okay.
So I'm in the middle of finalizing that, because you only gave that to me yesterday. So.
I understand. Okay. Debbie's a tough.
No, and
Okay, the next one is Roy to work with Susan to get the word out about circuit breaker credit on Facebook. Two things there. One, I drafted a 12,000 word document to go up there, which Susan said, we need to reduce. She cut it down. We've gotten permission to borrow a graphic from Kelly. And as of yesterday, we were able to give permission to Susan to go ahead and put that back up. And she has a nice catchy few word graphic to go up there. So that's in progress. All right. Susan to ask Kelly to talk to Mrs. Sands, the collector/treasurer, about putting info on CBC, circuit breaker, or was that something else? Yeah, okay. In the next tax bill, if feasible, what are the costs? Okay. Have you had a chance to?
We haven't talked about that specifically. In other words, the problem with that is you weren't at, I don't know, was it when last
Yeah,
meeting that we talked about?
She was there at the
So
last
how
one.
hard it is to have them stuff it in there.
Mhm.
There would be a fee associated with adding that.
Right.
And I'm just not sure that that's the best, that's the easiest method, is to put it in with their tax bill.
well, the thing is that you're paying for printing, you're paying for stuffing. These bills are not just going to residents, they're going to landlords. They're going to commercial, industrial. So how much benefit are you going to do by sending it mass into tax bills when these tax bills are going everywhere? They're, so a senior who's renting, they're not gonna see it because the landlord's getting the bill. So I don't know if that is a benefit or not,
Right,
if the
right.
cost is really gonna, where a census, it gets to the actual individual's home. You see what I'm saying? So you're cutting the commercial, you're cutting the landlords out, you're cutting all that
Okay.
out.
So the
the
suggestion
census,
is,
the
go ahead.
census to me is your quickest way, but I think that's already.
Yeah, correct. And that's why we were talking about this is for next year anyway.
Yeah,
This is
yeah.
Okay.
for
Yeah.
right now.
Okay.
And that's what I suggested, because it was $371 is what the Friends of Seniors were charged to add it to. So then the question is, who pays that $371? You know, who's gonna pay for the mailing and stuff
Yeah.
and all that?
Yeah.
But that would make the most sense. And also, we talked with, Kelly about the idea of her putting out a postcard. She'll have a budget next year for some mass mailings. And then, of course, putting it in the crier is very effective. You know, we can just have the little ad and, you know, create awareness.
Yep.
In that
Okay.
sense.
So this is really going to be focused more toward next year.
Absolutely.
Okay, all right. All right, next point was Deborah to investigate the issue of a senior who's not head of household. Now, this was pretty much covered by what you said.
It wasn't really what I was going to investigate. I just brought that up, that if we were going to create the senior,
Means testing.
senior needs testing, you'd want to make sure that there's something to protect that resident. But I can't, there's nothing for me to investigate. It was just to bring the board or the committee aware that that could be an issue. So you might want to
Okay.
put something in there if we were going to create it.
Okay, and at some point we can cycle back on that. I recall reading something that provided a definition of what ownership meant. And it defined these are the ownership criteria that circuit breaker recognizes.
Okay.
And basically, if it wasn't covered there, doesn't fit.
Right. Yeah. But just because it's in that circuit breaker, the senior means test being on its own, you're using circuit breaker information, but you're not quite using that law, if that makes sense to us. You get what I'm saying? So if you created the senior, this is the way I understand. If you create the senior means test application, okay, and the town votes it, you're using circuit breaker amounts. You're not literally using the law, or are you?
Well, and that's what I'd have to go double check, because in most cases it references the circuit breaker law. Now, you know, the distinction you're making, I can't speak to.
Yeah, I mean, to me, they're two separate entities. You're using a part of something, but you're not using that whole thing. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, we'll have to go
So
back.
I'm not sure if that.
Okay. All right, Dick.
Yes, question for Deb. It says in the circuit breaker that it can be used as head of household, but not used if they're filing separately. Married couple filing separately. Does that mean that it can't be used at all, or does it mean that only one of them can use it?
As far as
Are you understanding what I'm saying? Maybe I'm not saying it correctly.
As far as the circuit breaker, that's an accountant's question. That's not mine. I'm just talking about the senior means testing.
And that's I'm trying. You said to use the same as circuit breaker, so that's why I'm asking the question.
Okay. What I was trying to explain is if you're doing the senior means testing and you're linking to the senior circuit breaker, all you're linking to is either they applied and they were approved, or the amounts.
Okay.
To me, you're not linking to the whole requirement of the circuit breaker.
Well, I guess that still asks the question, does married couple filing separately get any circuit breaker? According to what I read, no, but that seems ridiculous.
Okay, so if you go back to those towns that have already gone through the whole process, some use the circuit breaker, some use only the circuit breaker amounts to qualify.
Okay, all right, however you want to do it, just a question.
So again, I don't think that if we created this senior means testing, that we pull the circuit breaker in, we can specify we're only pulling the amounts in. Or we're saying that the only way you qualify for the senior means test application is if you had qualified to get the circuit breaker. There's,
Right, that,
you can go either way,
Right, and there's some of both in those eight.
right, within those 8,
And
there's,
we'll have to get into the detail of that when we get farther down the road.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Okay, let's move on to number 7, which is the group to review the reading materials that I sent out. Hopefully you've had a chance to look at that. We'll get into discussion about that later tonight. And then Roy to check on the Nash Wave Room and Zoom for future meetings. I believe we have it all established now. We are here in the room tonight. Okay, and I made it clear that we want to have hybrid meetings going forward. Thank you, everyone, for your flexibility last time. That was a great recovery, as they say. Okay, so that's that. All right, then moving on to the goals for this meeting. The first goal is to wrap up and tie off the work on SME. We had said that we were going to look at tax deferral a little bit more, and there are a couple of other aspects that opened up when I looked at tax deferral. We'll cover those. All right, around Lancaster equity appreciation, and some things about asset drawdowns and that kind of thing. And then we will cover, we'll start on tax fairness. And I look this to be a brainstorming session. In many cases, I've asked you to, first we'll talk about where we start with in terms of our own perspectives. And then we'll start looking at the documents that I sent you as it's food for thought and to get us thinking about what is tax fairness would be. Okay, so those are the goals for tonight. The quick update on a discussion with Kelly. I had a brief discussion with her yesterday, and she informed me that there have been 7 people who come in and asked specifically about circuit breaker, and 17 who come in generally asking about taxes and that type of thing. So those are the numbers that she has. All right. So that's what that is. All right. Does anyone have an idea in any terms of any other bright idea to get more awareness, or should we just set that down at this point and say we've done what we think we can? And
I don't see any other avenues. I don't, unless somebody comes up, I mean.
We've done the signs.
Yep.
We're doing Facebook shortly. We're looking at the mailing out, which has logistic and financial and other, and getting the right people access kind of issues.
I have one thing.
Go ahead, Dick.
I have one thing, Meals on Wheels. The other day I got the notice from the senior group. So a separate notice of Meals on Wheels probably would reach a number of older people and renters too, which is a question of how to get to renters. I don't know, it's just a suggestion. It isn't.
Okay.
I love
For
it.
consideration.
All right. Does anyone have a contact with Meals on Wheels?
Kelly.
Kelly would. Can you talk to Kelly about that? Okay. All right. So Susan will talk to Kelly about doing some outreach through Meals on Wheels. Thank you, Dick. Good idea.
You're welcome. I keep muting and unmuting. Sorry.
Okay. Speaking of that good idea and brainstorm, I wanted to share 2 things with you. One, I was talking to a friend of mine here in Lancaster the other day. And this friend said, "Oh, I just want to let you know, I'm an hour of the way through the Tax Fairness Committee meeting from," and she quoted a date. And she said, "I'm really enjoying it. I really think you folks are doing good work. Keep up the good work." Well, that's nice to hear, the fact that someone would listen to all of this. Okay, good. All right. And the second thing is, after the last meeting, Dick was having a conversation with me and said that he really liked and appreciated the way we work together as a committee, as a group, in terms of the interaction, the ideas feeding off of one another, the participatory approach we took, all this kind of thing. And Dick has been, I think this is his 12th bajillionth meeting or something like that, committee meeting he's been at. So he knows good committee meetings and bad ones, and he was pleased with what we're doing. So I just wanted to pass along those good words. Okay. All right. So moving on then, let's talk about discussions of tax deferral, equity, Lancaster equity appreciation, alternative some things about asset drawdowns and some comment about fixed income. Let me see if I can share my screen here. Hang on a second. Okay, share screen. Let's see what we get. Host disabled participant screen sharing.
Be able to, screen share.
I'm technically the host, I think, but see what you can do there. See what you can do there. I'm just going to share the time.
Click the multiple and see what happens. And see if it will let you
People let me share.
Because if it's embedded in the original.
Well,
Zoom,
it may have done it.
if it's embedded in the original Zoom, it wouldn't let you allow it.
Wow. Hang on a second. My goodness, yes. What are we? I'm not seeing anything like. Wow. I say share. I'm getting a bunch of things in Safari, Acrobat Reader. I'm not getting Word documents that I want to share.
So it does let you share, but you're not able to see what you want to share.
Right, exactly.
Did you have that problem last time, not last meeting, but
No, this is very different. I don't know what's going on. Yeah, it is. Wow, usually I'm able to go right up to, let me see, if I say share this, open system preference.
Mr. Chairman, would you like some help?
Yes, ma'am.
Stand by.
Okay.
Do you see that?
Do I see what? I see Nashway as host now?
It's you.
Now try to share.
Okay. I get some things to share, but it says basic, advanced, files, and apps, and none of them are like a Microsoft Word document, which I have a couple open to share.
Are you Nashway host or are you boards committee?
I'm boards and committees.
All right, hold on.
It's allowing you to share it. You just can't find where.
How's that?
You are host now. Okay, and let me. I'm still getting the same strange.
So you hit share screen, the green box down the bottom, and it should bring up like all of the windows. You double click on the window you want to share. Is that not working?
That's not working. What it's not doing is bringing up the windows that I can share. Other
Bringing
than
up a lot of apps and things, but not the specific.
right. I get basic.
I've never seen that before.
Wow. Let me close this down. Come back into it. No. If I close it down and come back into it, I get the same unusual set of selections that don't tie to anything, none of the windows I want to open.
Well, that doesn't seem to be a Zoom issue because I can see I'm not driving anymore, just in case you were worried.
Thank goodness we were worried.
So I'm looking at the dashboard and it says boards and committees has full access. So
Yeah, I
that
say,
says to me, that says to me that you need an IT person.
uh-huh, yes.
I happen to know a gal. She works right on the first floor.
Right, I think I'll have to go over this before the next meeting. I don't know why, unless Heidi's got, you see.
The alternative could be if it's a Mac issue, which I haven't seen before, you could always use the current machine that's in the room. So you can, because I've had to do that before with other people that are presenting. If you happen to have it beforehand, I can upload it to the computer that's in that room. And, it doesn't have to live there forever. After your meeting, you can take it back.
Sure. Are you suggesting we do that now or for the next meeting? Sure.
Well, I don't see how you could do it now.
Okay, all right. I didn't know how many miracles you had up your sleeve.
Well, that would, I mean, time travel or the ability to fly there would be pretty awesome.
Yeah, this is super weird.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, okay. All right, we'll defer this topic.
Oh, you know what? Wait a minute. What if you emailed it to me?
Okay.
I'm not in the car, so let me go get my other computer.
All right, I can email it to you.
Okay.
1 second.
No promises, but if you have another topic you want to go to before this one, well, I'm monkeying around with
We'll
it.
see if we can do this quickly, otherwise we'll just move on and go down to our next topic after this.
Okay.
Although it would be helpful if we could have this, if I can get these notes. Hang on a second. All right, let me get this for you here. Just gotta find your. Hang on 1 second. One moment. Okay, it should be on its way to you.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Can hear you, yes.
Okay. Wow.
Put that in action item. Roy needs to do some dry runs with Zoom.
Thing is, once you get it down, pat, it'll change. So don't worry about it.
Did it come through, Kate?
Yep. Got it?
No, great. Okay, thank you. All right, so I wanted to do a little bit of preface stuff, and then we'll get into tax deferral sets of things, and a couple of other options. And I'm looking to share some information and get us to, I think, a conclusion in a couple of these spots in terms of what we would recommend. You'll see that in just a couple minutes. Okay. So first of all, during retirement, seniors can, and it is expected that they will draw cash and income from one or more of the following. Okay. This phrase is, it is expected that they will, believe it or not, is an issue for many seniors who don't want to take out money from things that they've spent their whole life saving into. I mean, it's an internal it's a gut level reaction, you know, kind of thing. First of all, Social Security. 99.9% of everybody who's retired in Lancaster, I believe, is on Social Security. All right. Those who aren't, maybe on pensions, work-related union, that type of thing. The key thing about Social Security is that there are yearly cost of living adjustments. Now, you can argue whether or not those keep up with the cost of living or not. Okay, some people say they're not enough, other people say they're too much, this kind of thing. But the term fixed income is not a good phrase to use for someone who's on Social Security, because clearly the number changes every year and it goes up in general. Okay, doesn't go down, to the best of my knowledge. They have savings, they have investments, IRAs, 401ks, et cetera, Roth, et cetera. And some have taxable investment accounts, right? They also have, and what we're going to spend a little bit of time on tonight, is appreciated home value. It turns out that the home is one of the largest, if not the largest, financial assets for many people in retirement. And the appreciated value is substantial, particularly here in Lancaster, all right? There may be others, other things that they access. Anything else that comes to mind for anybody that we didn't mention?
I don't know, sometimes they work part-time or like small amounts.
The next item down here behind,
Right.
where you go, Susan? Okay, can you space up a little bit, Kate? Kate, can you space it down? Yes, thank you. Some have part-time jobs, side gigs, this kind of thing. Some have full-time jobs. Some people don't want to retire. They keep working because they like it. Others sometimes need to. Some take transition assistance, help, and from programs that are there, et cetera. So all of these things contribute to, you know, their income during retirement. Now, most seniors hope that during their working lifetime, they saved enough that they really don't have to work when they're retired. That's the goal for all of us, okay? Sometimes you're close, sometimes people don't quite make it, but okay. And doing side jobs, et cetera, as a backup. Now, this point I made before, after having planned and saved their whole life, believe me, it's an emotional reaction. People don't want to take anything out of the 401ks they spent their whole life saving, or their savings accounts and stuff like this. It's hard. Financial advisors sometimes have to spend a lot of time to get them to understand. No, you've always planned that you would use some of this money. Here is a drawdown approach, and they kind of don't want to do it, but you know, we all need
forced to, because 401k has the minimum.
Right. The whole RMD thing is right, required minimum distributions for those who don't know about it. So that's a whole issue to draw down those funds. All right. Let alone the issue in terms of the tax deferral program, which affects the house that they've also worked hard to pay off the mortgage on. Okay. Let's talk about a couple of things that we know. First of all, the tax deferral was almost completely unused in Lancaster. I think Deborah has helped us understand that one person in the last several years has used it.
Yes.
One. Okay. Out of 5,000 adults, 5,000 voting taxpayers, that's virtually unused. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Right.
I mean, you're
There
talking
is
like
an-
1,600 seniors or something, right? Like we were saying, not.
That's true. Yeah, you're right. It's the more applicable.
Is it 1,600 something?
Roughly somewhere around 1,600 seniors.
Yeah,
You're right.
and then out of that person did it 1 year and skipped a year, did it?
They didn't qualify for a couple of years.
So
And they could qualify if they apply this year and they qualify. But just remember that all 1,600 may not qualify because
Yes.
that income level is quite low.
Yeah, right. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. Okay. All right. So that's true. Now, the second point is that there's an emotional response by seniors relative to using tax deferral because it does require signing a document which puts a lien on your house.
Mm-hmm.
And the only thing worse than taking money out of your 401k programs is putting a lien on the house you've worked all those years to get it sheltered from the mortgage and get the mortgage paid off. So that's an emotional response. Well, I did a preliminary analysis. We'll talk about it here in a few minutes. Okay. But the appreciation of homes in Lancaster has been so significant that people have got so much appreciated value in that they should understand it so that they can decide if they want to use it or not. Okay. And that's the whole point here. Okay. Is you need to understand how much value there is there. All right. So let's take a look at, I wound up taking a look at 3 different options. Okay, if you could space down a little bit more. Right, keep going right there is fine. Okay, well, right there. Did you back up to A? Thank you. Okay. So use tax deferral so the homeowner can use the amount of money normally allocated to real estate taxes. On the average home, it's $85.34 in fiscal 24 for other expenses because they don't have to pay the taxes. They have that money or some portion of it, depending on what their income status is, that they can use for other expenses. The second thing is to take a look at a reverse mortgage. I looked at a reverse mortgage for about, based on some numbers I looked at, for about $350,000 and to see what that could do. And the third thing was to allocate the proceeds from about 130,000 investments to cover taxes. And I'll show you what that came out like. All right. Now, unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to show the Excel spreadsheet, but I will talk about it in terms of this chart that's below here. Let's talk about tax deferral. Can you space up a little bit more, Kate? Up? No, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Down.
I thought that was odd, but.
Okay. Okay. Can you shrink the top part of that so we can get more on the page?
You're killing me. Only because I can't. No, I'm just kidding. But I just can't see what you can see. So wait. So down means you want not 7. You want me to go more towards 8?
Yes, right.
Okay.
Well, okay. I do want to see 7. Can you get all of 7 on the? There you go. Way to go. Way to go. Thank you, Kate.
No
All
problem.
right. So let's talk about tax deferral summary. And the basics of this are you can apply for a tax deferral, which allows you to defer the taxes this year. And if you apply in subsequent years and you are eligible, you can defer both the accrued taxes from prior years as well as the accrued interest on those taxes, because the interest rate is like 8% is what the standard law is. So the pros are for the town, and you got to think about the town of Lancaster, you got to think about the taxpayers in this case. For the town of Lancaster, it's established law. There's a clause 41A all about this. There's a process. You know, the town has done it in the past. They can do it again, you know, this kind of thing. For the taxpayer, it saves the tax payment. Okay. If you continue to meet the eligibility criteria, it's renewable in future years so that you can roll this over and in effect, keep pushing this forward until you leave the house. There's a couple of special cases, but let's just think about it as until you leave the house. The cons to this are as follows. First of all, for the town's point of view, the town has to cover by raising taxes because the money that we don't get from this one home that is doing a tax deferral, town can't go out and borrow money to cover that tax need that we get. We have to raise taxes on everybody else. It turns out it's like 5/100ths of 1% or something like this if one house does it. So it's like no big deal. I think it's $4.27 on the average house. No big deal, all right? However, it's not practical to scale this. If we had 100 people of the average house who wanted to defer their taxes, in effect, the town would not get 8,534, 853,400 in taxes. And the town would have to make that up by collecting it from other people. And it would be, because it would be a shortfall against the budget.
But the budget's already closed. You can't go back and borrow. I see what you're saying.
Yeah, okay, yes, I hear your point. Right, we can't go back and reopen the budget, but
Right.
if the town could predict that this was gonna happen, they would.
But you don't predict it till after everything's done because the applications
Okay.
come in, so it's kind of a catch.
Well, let's put it this way, if 100 people did this, it would be a significant shortfall for the town.
It would be sitting there uncollected.
Yes. Okay, all right, fine. Adjusting the eligibility criteria so that more people could, apply for this and be eligible. It's not in the town's best interest. I mean, we don't want a lot of people using this program. All right. From the taxpayer's point of view, the current eligibility criteria, which is 20K for income, is unrealistic and I'm being kind. Okay. Nobody can live in town on 20K.
Yet there are.
There are? Ooh, I'm
I
surprised.
know, it's sad, but there are,
Wow. Okay.
unfortunately.
That's interesting to hear. The 8% interest rate is relatively high in today's market, all right? And you give up the circuit breaker tax credit. You didn't pay your taxes.
So you don't get it.
So you don't get $2,560 in this year, maximum, okay? Which is like $50,000 over 20 years. We would not as tax fairness committee, we would not recommend this to taxpayers that they go use this tax deferral program. It increases your taxes by 41%, okay? Because you don't have that $2,500 you can take off. That's a lot of money, If you're struggling, don't do this. And require signing a lien against the home, which is emotional, of the first order. So I think the Tax Fairness Committee recommendation should be something like, could you page up a little bit, Kate, so we can see the bottom of that, because we have a little blank.
Page down.
Page down, right, okay, right. This is not attractive to either the town or you were back up?
It's
Right-
footnote.
right there.
He's looking for the footnote.
No, I'm just looking for this last phrase here. This
Yeah.
is like, okay,
The footnote, it's a footnote, number one.
we're fine, okay. All right, so this is not attractive or effective program. Tax deferral is not an attractive program for either the town or the taxpayer. Taxpayers should consider other options. And I think once we think about this a little bit, I think I would like to have us pass a motion saying our recommendation is because of these negatives that Tax Fairness Committee does not recommend tax deferral for either the town or a taxpayer. It's just not a good way to go.
I mean,
Alright.
it's there for the emergency taxpayer, the one that's really, really struggling.
Okay,
It's
that may
not
be,
something to open up to someone who, at 70,000, if you're making 70,000, I don't see how this would be a benefit to the town.
Mhm. Yeah. So it may
It
be
making a lot
emergency,
less than I'm covering my tax.
emergency 1 year kind of thing or something like that.
Right. If something, a drastic thing came up and they could qualify, but I agree. I don't think that this is just for an emergency person who's not bringing in the income.
Okay. So,
So now we move on to reverse.
now we're going to move on to reverse mortgage, which I looked at somewhat. And Kate, yes, thank you. Right there is fine. Great. So reverse mortgage, the pros for the taxpayer, because the town gets its money. So the town is, doesn't care either way. Town's getting its money. It's fine. The pros are that living in Lancaster, if you've been here for 10 years, has produced a significant equity in homes. One site I found said that home values in Lancaster have gone up 81% in the last 10 years. Okay? That's a lot. It's almost double.
Well, where's the market going?
Hmm?
Where's the market going?
The market, the stock market,
No,
the market for houses,
yes,
and it's in general been up. Yeah, it's been up that much.
yep,
It's basically where that comes from.
yep,
That was the appreciated value of the market, not the assessed value,
okay.
which should track pretty close.
Pretty close, yes.
Right, okay. So that's dramatic. And in effect, half of the value of your house today is money that you didn't pay in if you've been living here for 10 years in the average house. Okay. There can be different amounts if you're at the very high end or the very low end, but I just use something in the middle. The second pro is that it allows continued living in the current home, which we said was a priority and a beneficial approach for seniors. And the third point is you can still use the circuit breaker because you have paid your taxes. All right. So, hey, and that reduces, in effect, your net tax burden quite a bit. It gets you down to like 40 something, $4,000 or something like that, roughly. A great win. The cons are, first of all, there are high initial fees. Some of them can be as high as $10,000, which when I read that, I thought, wow, it's good, not good. And interest rates can be in the 9% range. Wow. Second is it requires signing a mortgage against your home. This is in effect, just a regular mortgage, but it also looks like a lien. Okay, and Deborah is shaking her head. It reduces the value of the home when sold, moved, transferred to heirs. You have, in effect, what you have on the reverse mortgage is going to come off of the sales price. You got to pay that first because of the mortgage you got there. And 5 is volatility/decline in home prices, which is lower than the volatility in the stock market. And in general, people say, well, yeah, home prices and stock market, which can move around a lot, home prices don't go up or down that much. Yes, they can go down a little, but usually not very much. They usually come back. All right. It could be a problem. Home values are more stable than the stock market. That's the bottom line. So borrowing against the value of your house is less risky than borrowing against the value of stocks. All right. So I think our recommendation should be something like taxpayers should consider discussing a reverse mortgage as a possible financial option with financial and tax advisors as well as family. Because it affects what you're going to pass on to your heirs. You want to have both all the best advice as well as make sure your family is understanding and is with you on this. I did do a financial analysis that said if you took out a $350,000 reverse mortgage on your home, which you could easily be able to cover with the equity you had in the house, you could easily cover your taxes for 20 years, even when the taxes are going up 20% more than they have in the last 10 years, et cetera. Okay. And when the appreciation on the house was only 70% of what it's been the last 10 years. I try to be conservative on this. It seems like it's a very reasonable thing that you could consider. And as always, you need to talk with tax professionals and financial advisors. Tax Fairness Committee is not making financial recommendations customers to taxpayers. But I think, this is kind of the level of, I think what we should do is a recommendation. All right. Any questions about that? Heidi?
The little random, that we used to live in Berlin and our neighbors, and they ended up. I don't know how long they did it for, but is it something that we should think about? Like, is there like a range in which this makes sense?
In my research, I found 2 statements about that. One is because it's called a non-recourse loan, which says that they can't foreclose even if the value of your house goes below what the mortgage is. Okay? They can't foreclose on you. So I found those statements. I also found some statements where people will say, well, under very special conditions, they can foreclose. And I wasn't able to sort that out. I can go take a look at that a little bit more, but I've got mixed reviews on that, Heidi, to be honest with you. Okay?
Hey, sorry, Mr. Chair. I actually have to go because I am supposed to be presenting to a college class in 2 minutes.
Okay.
Can I just show your number 9?
Yeah, so you can show my number 9 real quickly, and I will say this, that if you use the proceeds from an investment, I figured out that 130,000 at the average return on the market would 130,000 would pay your taxes for 20 years and basically not dent your principal. You'd still have 130,000 at the end. I'm sorry, it was 19 years. The 20th year you were down a couple of thousand. Okay, go ahead and go. That's it.
How do we stop sharing her screen then?
Can you?
I think she needs to leave to make a presentation, so she might need Zoom on something else.
Yeah, can you go ahead and?
Okay.
No, I just made you the chair. I mean, I just
Yeah,
right.
no, I just made you the host, and you should be all set.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Kate. I appreciate you helping us there. Okay.
Yeah,
No problem. Okay.
So
Bye-bye.
the bottom line of that, I think, a rough recommendation we could make is that for seniors with investment assets, this approach could be viable to basically say, I'm going to take the income from this amount of assets and just use it to pay my taxes for the next 20 years. You still get to use circuit breaker as a pro here, okay, to this kind of thing. And you still have the same amount of money left at the end of 19 years, okay, which is, wow, what more can you ask for? And you still have the appreciated value in your house. So when you sell it, okay, this feels like a win-win, you know? So I think we wind up making some kind of recommendation that says taxpayers should consider discussing this with their tax and financial advisors because it appears to have some benefits. And I think we make these three general kinds of statements and recommendations. We've provided some guidance and benefit to seniors in these areas. Okay, here's one approach that we don't recommend, okay? And here are 2 other approaches that they could consider. So, you know, I wanted to give you this as a starting point. Maybe what we'll do is we'll defer this. I'll send you a copy of these notes. And at the next meeting, we'll review it and decide, you know, what's the statement we want to make. And I would ask for a motion in effect at that point in time that says the Tax Fairness Committee moves that. We recommend or we don't recommend, whatever it is. Okay, makes sense? All right. And this is a little background in terms of other things, and that pretty much wraps up what we said we would do to tie a bow around the senior means tested exemption for now until we hear from, you know.
And I did talk to Bobby Joe.
Okay.
Department of Revenue did have a Zoom meeting with the assessors, and the senior tax means they're talking possibly 2 years.
2 years.
2 years to get it up and out because of the way she did the package. And then they're also talking within that, there is a change coming to the 41Cs that they're going to give towns options to increase above 500, which that's what the original 41C was. It was 500 exemption amount off your taxes. When they amended that law, they allowed towns to vote to go to 1,000, and Lancaster went to 1,000. So I guess what this would do would allow the town to go, if they chose to go 1,500, instead of the 1,000, they could do it at that, once that law goes through.
Okay, and what was 41C again? I'm sorry.
41C was for seniors.
And it is?
Yeah.
It's just an exemption of some sort?
It's a senior exemption, and if you apply and you qualify, you get $1,000 off your taxes.
Okay.
I think we had talked about, I gave you it way back at the beginning.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'll have to go back and check
income
the
asset
clause.
qualifications. Which I love.
Income limits, because if it's 20,000 like that one,
Like,
it doesn't do much.
that's the-
Well, there's single and married. And I know I've got it. 41C. So 41C, like I said, the original was $500 off.
And it's
now
just a
1,000.
straight out of exemption if you qualify.
Correct.
And what are the qualifications if you can
I'm-
find them?
Had married.
Okay.
So income limit for 41C. I hate this packet because it doesn't do it. So for 41Cs, you are allowed single, 17,000.
17,000 is
Yeah.
income?
Yeah, it's really low. And then if you're married, 20,000. Yeah, unless they start talking about bringing the asset incomes up, this again, even if
Right,
you
right.
jacked up the amount, it's not benefiting anyone.
Right. And also because the town just loses that money. It's not that the state gives it to them.
The state reimburses
Oh, they do.
on all exemptions, the state does reimburse, but on an exemption for 41C, where the original law was 500, if we gave out an exemption for 500, you get a refund back from the state on your cherry sheets for the 500.
Okay.
When they increase to 1,000, they never increase that. So if we give out, say, $10,000 exemptions for 41C, we're only getting 500 on
Yeah,
those.
so there's no benefit for us to have made it
You're-
1,000. And secondly, why would there be a benefit to raise it to 1,500 when that law changed? Unless
15
they
or 2.
match.
Unless they
match.
bring the income, right, but they're not, yeah.
Right. So again, this is not beneficial. This is not something we can promote. There might be 10, 15 people in town that make that little of income. I don't know.
No
what the numbers are.
matter, and I don't mean to, no matter what exemption or benefit you're trying to give these seniors, it's still gonna come out of the pot. It's still gonna,
Right.
as you've said, and Heidi, you've said the same thing. It's coming out of your tax,
Right.
Yeah.
So there's not really a good way to,
No?
from these other programs that are available in the state, but doesn't benefit the town or the senior.
Right. Quick question, while you've got that there in front of you. Is there a provision in there, like there is with 41A, where the town legislative body, that is the town meeting, can change the,
That's what you said.
Income?
Lancaster did.
When the law amended to 1,000, we did it, but
we
what,
didn't change the income
can't.
eligibility. We can't change that.
That's a state thing.
that is a state thing.
All right.
You can only change the amount that you're
Right.
giving them. But
Okay.
Again, that does not benefit.
And who's to say as they're working on this, who's to say that they don't look at and go, well, what the heck? Let's increase income and assets at the same time. That's a possibility.
You're
Because
talking
when
about
they,
new legislation.
Correct.
That'll be part of it.
when they went from the $500 up to the 1,000, they increased the income and assets. Not by much,
Yeah.
but a little bit.
Okay.
So who's to say they don't work on that too?
Okay.
What they're going to do, I don't know. So that was from Bobby Joe.
All right. Okay, thank you. So SME is going to be 2 years before they have
Up to 2 years.
up to 2 years.
Uh-huh.
But I'd still agree that I don't think
Well,
we should do anything.
I think, and I totally agree, I think I would prefer having them come down with their rulings.
Well,
At least we have a law already
Yes.
written instead of,
and the thought would be, even if we went and submitted something based on the old law, I would think the first thing the legislation would do is say, wait a minute, we're revaluing this. We're
Well-
deciding what we're gonna do, and we're not gonna pass things under the old law. Most likely, I would think that they would not wanna do that.
well, the Attorney General is different from the legislation, so what we would be doing would be going to the Attorney General.
Really? Okay.
Yes. So, they wouldn't sit back and go in that comment. I still feel that it would be better just to sit back and wait.
I tend to agree with you too. I was just saying that as another reason why we should. Okay.
Because none of these things seem like they're really, I mean, the circuit breaker seems like the thing that is
Right.
the most beneficial. And
Because it's
all
not
these
happening.
others are not really helping the town.
Well, yeah,
Helping
it's,
the seniors
it
that
seems to
much.
have broad eligibility.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a significant amount of money,
Yeah,
and it doesn't cost the town anything.
right. All those reasons,
Wow, those are three big, strong reasons. Okay, all right. So we're going to set down senior needs test of exemption now, and these sorts of things. We'll probably bring up these specific proposals I made. I will send this to you. All right, and we'll review it next meeting, and we can decide and vote on, in effect, what our wording and recommendation would be in these areas. Okay? All right. Now we're going to shift gears. We're going to shift gears to the other part of our charter, having to do with tax credits. And the first question to think about here is when you think about tax fairness, I'm talking about you, Susan, Heidi, Deborah, Dick, and me. What comes to your mind when we talk about tax fairness, specifically relative to real estate taxes? That's the area we're going to focus in on, is real estate taxes. We're not going to look at other taxes, meals tax and everything else the town charges. That's not what our charter is. We're supposed to look at real estate taxes. When someone says to you, are the real estate taxes in Lancaster fair, what do you use to judge fairness? And then we'll talk about what your neighbors might use. Comments, thoughts?
Well, it's based upon your house, your individual house. And so it's customized. It's not like a swooping thing, everybody pays, $10,000. It's customized. So the idea is to be fair, because my neighbor's house is bigger than my house, that I shouldn't have to pay more of his taxes and so forth. So I think the system is fair because it is based upon that. Now, are there minor adjustments? Does my house have a basement? I don't like that my house was assessed with this, and what are those criteria? That's a case-by-case basis that people can come in and bring up and say, well, I don't think mine's fair because of this, this, or this. But there is a system and a mechanism by which they can do that. And so if they choose not to, if they're fine paying the taxes and they don't think that their neighbor is paying more than them, then it's fine. So I think the system is fair. It's based upon the need, the amount that's charged is based upon the need of what the town needs to function, to pay their bills.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why it's going up, because the cost is going up, because Neshoba is going up, because Minuteman's going up, and these prices drive, and the cost of the employees and what have you, that's what drives our town budget. So it's all wrapped together in that. So if you are looking to reduce taxes overall, then, what people pay, then the only recourse in my mind is reduce what is spent or what percentage or what have you that, oh, look at that.
Look at that.
Yeah, I didn't type in.
Yeah. So I guess my thing is like, it is what it is. I mean, I don't know that we're really going to get, like, I think it's fair the way the system is currently set up. And I don't know that there's something we can do differently out of what the options are. The only option is to reduce what the town needs for revenue.
Okay.
Because it's directly tied in. It's not like they ask for more taxes than what they need. So.
Okay. All right. So, all right. Right. I hear your comments. Anybody else in terms of what does tax fairness mean to you? Taxes are fair if, XYZ is happening, or they're unfair if something else isn't.
I mean, all the towns, all the states, operate the same way. in Massachusetts. You pay your taxes. The assessor's office is based upon what the budget is and what the budget for the town means.
Well, it's based on two things. It's based on what the budget for the taxes as an approved budget is, number one. And number two, it's based on the assessed value for your home. Okay, which, unless your house sold very recently, okay, in which case we have a specific market statement of what that house is worth. Other than that, if it hasn't sold in a while, the assessed value of your house is based on, help me with the wording, it kind of the assessor's judgment of what the house, no?
Market value.
Well, okay, then,
It's market value, and she's
Yeah.
exactly right.
help me understand. it
Assessed
hasn't-
value is done every single year
Right,
by the sales of the previous year.
okay,
So you have to look at all your ranches, all your capes, look at all the sales. If your capes are coming up in sales and they're, say, 300,000 for a basic cape, and we're at 220, Department of Revenue is not going to approve our values unless we bring those up. So our values, 99% of the values that sit in Lancaster right now are because of market.
Uh-oh.
And what is the marker for that market? Is it like Zillow? Is it,
No.
you know, what?
No, no,
No,
no.
it's
no,
real,
no.
actual real estate
It
transactions.
is actually deeds. We get the deeds in every single
Okay.
month and we post those deeds.
And is it specifically to our town, no
You
other
can't
town?
go anywhere
Okay.
else but
So
Lancaster.
it's, so you look at what's a ranch, what's a, you know, colonial, what's a whatever, and
Right.
that's why the individual can come back and say, well, wait a minute, mine's got the pool, mine's got a basement, mine's got this,
Right, right.
because they're only looking at the shape and the square footage of the item and not necessarily all the other amenities or things that are going on with it.
Well, there is a case of that, but you've also got to understand that when you're looking at, once all those deeds come in and you post them, you take and run a spreadsheet and you
Mhm.
break those spreadsheets down in neighborhoods to see if your land needs to be adjusted. Types of houses,
And who
square
does all
foot.
that?
Our appraiser and Bobby Joe.
Okay, so you have an outside appraiser?
We
that
have an
does this?
outside that helps get it together,
Okay.
but Bobby Joe looks over all the sales and works with this person.
And do we pay that appraiser
Yeah,
some flat fee, or
No.
is it based
It's-
upon the number of
It's
houses?
a company. It's a company we've had for probably about 18, 20 years now.
Okay,
And they help. Because when you go into, on the 5th year, you do a full reval. DOR does not want assessors doing revals, especially when they're in small towns. They want to see you doing through a company. So this company helps us do that too.
Help me understand the difference between what happens every year versus the 5th year.
Department of Revenue requires that every single year, the assessors have to do an assessment of sales for the previous year. That's required.
Mm-hmm.
Used to be in the olden days, you could go 3 years, leave the values alone. On that 3rd year, do a reval. But that's not anymore. The DOR turned around and expanded it to go 5 years. So on that 5th year, you do a full reval. But between that 5th year, every single year, you've got to go back and you've got to look at your sales. You've got to justify those sales if they are arm's length sales.
Okay. yeah,
You
keep
can't
going.
use something a son buys from a parent or,
Yes,
you
I
know,
understand.
a sister buys from a brother. You can't use those. Or an estate is selling. That's not an arm's length. They're trying to get rid of it, so you can't use that sale.
Mhm.
But a regular sale you use, you break those down and then you look to see where you are. Department of Revenue requires you to be at 100% of market every single year.
Okay, help me understand a little bit more, because I'm missing something here, okay? Let's say, and I'm just gonna take a couple numbers to get some kind of parameter. Let's say there are 100 capes here in Lancaster.
Yeah.
Okay? Some are 2 bedrooms, some are 3 bedrooms, whatever. and
Doesn't matter.
Okay, all right. And in that year, some number of capes have sold.
Mm-hmm.
10%, 20% maybe? Yeah. Okay, so how do you take the 10% on those, on those 10 capes, and how do you apply it to the 100 that are slightly different?
You have to. If those
Okay.
10 capes are selling for 350,000,
On average, or what?
Well,
on
just a
average,
number.
just a number.
Okay,
If those 10 capes are selling, that's telling you that the market's saying that all capes in town could be selling at that. And Department of Revenue requires you to be there.
okay, and help me.
So only 10 got sold, but 100 were there. So they would take the value of what the 10 were, the average of the 10,
You take
and
the
they would
average,
apply
No,
that.
they
to-
would look at they'd look at every single one and see where the market was. And there could be a pool involved in this. So you've got to take that into consideration.
Okay,
Okay. But if you had 10 capes and those sold for average between 310 and 350,
okay, yeah,
all right? You've got the rest of the capes sitting there and you're assessing them right now at 210.
if it's way off, clearly. Okay,
You've got to bring those 210s up.
right, to the
Sure.
market value.
To the
of what
market
those
value of
sold
so
where-
you would jump them all up to the
Yes.
average?
Yeah, yeah,
You'd be a
I'd
big
have
step.
to.
Oh, okay, help me understand it. Of those 10, let's say that there's a range of prices.
Yep,
Okay, and let's say it's significant. It's not narrow, it's significant. Let's say between 250 and 350.
mm-hmm,
Okay? Based on number of bedrooms, based on land, based on pools, whatever.
okay.
Okay? How do you apply that?
You would start
Should be
looking at the age of those capes
Okay,
and seeing where the value lies within the age of those capes. Some of those capes might be 30 years old, some of those capes might be 50 years old. Then you'd have to look at, well, are the old, newer ones selling more than the older ones? Where is the disconnect? So you'd have to really start looking at.
so there's some
And then you
analysis that
have to
goes
look-
on to try to break this down and, okay. All right. Okay.
And then you have to look at the land too. Because if you've got a cape that sold for $380,000 and he's got an acre and a half, and you've got a cape that sold at 310, but it's only got a quarter of an acre, there's
You
a,
make an adjustment.
you have to make an
in that-
adjustment.
in that.
Okay, all right, sure,
So-
and those are the kinds of judgments I would expect you to apply.
Yeah.
I just don't, yeah,
So that's what I'm saying is
Well, I
that
understand.
an individual person they may say they don't like the number that they're being, the assessment value, and they believe that it should be different for whatever reason, that they can easily go to the town and say, I'd like to get a breakdown for my assessment and, come up with the numbers and ask for it to be specifically reassessed.
right.
So there's a mechanism of fairness in my mind if the person chooses to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And-
Okay,
When a person comes in or a person goes online and looks at their record and looks at their neighbor's record or looks at, say you've got a ranch and you don't like where your value is.
Mhm.
So you can go look at somebody else's ranch, you can look at, and you can see bedrooms don't give value. You can have 3 bedrooms, you can have 1 bath. Bedrooms do not, it's square footage.
Yeah, square footage of
really,
land.
square footage?
It's square
Land.
footage,
And-
bathrooms. Yep, land,
Square footage is then?
bathrooms.
Okay.
Yeah,
So-
square footage is a key factor. And
Type
so
of
whether
heat.
you have a finished basement versus a non-finished basement,
Right.
that really changes your
Yes.
assessment value.
Heating, air conditioning, if you have
Age of
central
the-
age, central air.
And neighborhood, because she was saying too,
Okay,
certain, if you're in North Lancaster, you're gonna get the big trucking thing.
If you're
Like,
on, if you're on
And then,
117, up, right up at the road, your land value is gonna be a little bit less than your neighbor
Sure.
who you drive down the road and back.
okay, just one question I'd like to ask here is, could you provide us with this list of the biggest impact in terms of value? You talked about square footage, you talked about bathrooms, and if you could list that, I think that would be
Well, I
helpful.
mean, it's up to
Well-
the outside appraiser.
Sure, but I think that would be helpful for people to understand.
Would it be helpful for you to understand why your value being a ranch is different from your neighbor's being a ranch? That they might have a finished basement and you don't,
Sure, it
or
would be,
their land is bigger than yours.
Right, right. It would be helpful because let me share with you a couple of interactions I've had in town with people who said, my taxes aren't fair because,
Yep.
okay, you know.
Yep.
All right. And first of all, let me share it. Heidi, you're going to jump in here someplace after I finish this, right? With your thoughts? Okay. All right. When I think of tax fairness for real estate, the first thought that comes to my mind is that there should be a similar assessed value applied to homes and properties that have similar overall economic characteristics or something like that. Similar number of bedrooms, similar number
Yeah, and that's what
bathrooms, etc. So that's the first thing that comes to my mind. If I'm looking at two houses, if a builder has built houses, two of them are exactly the same, number of bedrooms, etc. They're right next to each other. I expect that those two are going to be within, very few dollars of each other in terms of the assessment.
If everything is the same,
Yes.
yes.
Right. Okay. The issue is that when you start comparing two houses that are some slightly different, not everything's the same. So the question becomes, what do you evaluate? And I think it'd be helpful just to get a list like that. Okay, what the biggest determinants are. So that's the first thing that comes to my mind. The second thing is there shouldn't be a bias relative to assessed value based on, the race, the age, the creed, etc. of the person who owns it. Now, I don't think there
That's
is.
not,
Yeah.
no.
Right.
Just strictly numbers on sales.
You can't, there is no way. It's like when I was in that office and people used to say, but my neighbor, and I would pull their cards out and I would put them right in front. So you got this square footage, they've got this square. And I would go back and forth. And then I would say, when they really would get upset with me, what do you think we do? Take a dartboard and just, I don't like them? You can't do that because all these numbers go into DOR. If those numbers, they don't like them, you're not getting the value and you're not going to get your values approved and you're not going to get a tax rate.
Right. And
So you can't.
Yeah,
Okay.
they don't know who that person is. They're just
Right.
looking at an
It's-
address and the description of the house.
Right. It's I agree, and I don't think in Lancaster is bias around that, but that'd be one of my criteria that fairness means there isn't a bias around those things. Now, I will tell you that I read one article, I'll have to go track it down, okay, that says even though assessors don't know the race of the owner of a home, they are able to show that because they're able to show that Black-owned homes have a different assessed value than white-owned homes that have similar characteristics. Because they argue,
Where is that?
I will go track it down again.
But where, in what state is that?
Across all states, and they have a range they show. I will go track it
And,
down.
and there may be something like that if, for instance, we were talking about a criteria is the neighborhood. So that may be true if you look at a neighborhood, like if there's a predominance of African Americans in one particular neighborhood, and then that
I will
affects
go
the
track that
formula.
article down.
But I don't
If
think,
it's affecting the property in selling values.
right.
Okay, but as
So
far as just,
assessors, no.
yeah, it just randomly doing that, that's illegal.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you.
When you talk about neighborhood, that's more or less having to do with the land values, and that's having to do how much does that property have to put up with? Are they out in a field where there's open land, or are they up front on 117 getting
Sure.
the trucks and everything else, and the noise and the vibration, or living down
So
by the
that-
tracks?
Right, so that house would have less value than, out
The
in woods
land
somewhere,
value would be a little
So
bit less, yes.
location matters.
Yes.
But they wouldn't know
No.
who was in the house.
No.
It's just a neighborhood might have less value.
I will
and
go track
that's-
this article down, and I'll share with.
But
what
I don't
can
think
find.
we have anything
Okay,
like
all right, I don't think we do, but it was interesting when I discovered it. Let me share two other things that people have claimed, let's put this up. Of the few conversations I've had with neighbors who brought up something about tax fairness. Here were two, I'm going to share with you anecdotes, okay? These are two data points,
Mhm.
all right? I just share with you what some people thought, okay? One person said, my taxes aren't fair because my taxes went up and my across the road kitty corner neighbor's house that is much newer and much larger, has many more square feet. Okay, and has much more land, to be clear, and much more, and more square footage in the house. Their taxes went down.
So I would probably have said to them, did you go in and look at the records? Or did you go online and look at the records?
The answer that, what they told me was, okay, was they went into the assessor's office.
Yep.
Okay, and this was a few years ago. I don't know. You may have, I don't know if you were there then or you may have gone. I don't know which. Okay. They said that the only answer they got was, well, some capes went up a lot. Okay, and you have a cape and therefore your house went up a lot. But they still didn't feel comfortable feeling that they had a good understanding of why their house, which was smaller in every dimension compared to this newer other house, why the taxes changed and why one went up and the other went down. Okay. And that's just one data point. I'm not asking you to, you probably don't have enough data to be able to give a great response, but
Oh, no, I can give a response.
okay.
And I could have been there at this time because I was
So,
there after the fact. I retired in October 21 and I stayed till December.
Okay. All right.
Basically, if somebody comes in and says, I'm overvalued, what happened? This is what happened. The market went up, sales went up. If a person said to me, this house is less than mine, but it's bigger than mine, I would say, okay, what is that address? And Bob Joe does the same thing and so does Adam. What's the address? Oh, I don't want to get them in trouble. Oh, you're not. I just would like to show you both cards and see where the difference lies.
Because all information is public information about the houses.
You can go online and you can pull it all up.
Can you get us a pointer to where we can pull that up? Because I've seen it once or twice. You're right. I just can't track it down.
You can actually go to the website.
Yeah.
Okay.
Your taxes on and put it in, anybody can go look at your taxes.
Okay.
I totally have percentages, what my neighbors.
Right, exactly.
Um,
For that reason, is it fair? Are
Is
they
it
paying
fair?
the same amount and is
Yeah.
it a triple size house, right?
Looks exactly.
Come on.
Right, so then you
John. Come to the end. And a lot about it.
What?
Yes.
And it's confusing.
Who?
Oh, my neighbor, I live on it.
different neighbors, you know,
Yeah. Right.
same concept, same thing that you're just saying there.
Right,
It's like,
right.
why
And
is that person
since-
paying less in taxes? And
Right.
that you can see how much they pay because that's public document.
And it's easy to see.
Right.
I
can
just
just
have to
And
go.
then sometimes you go like, oh, wow, we can pay for time.
Oh,
Didn't
Oh,
mention
does it
that.
actually show that?
oh, that I don't know. I'm just going in.
Wow,
If you
I
go
didn't
into
know
the
that.
assessors,
That they're gonna.
Okay. The assessor's
Website.
website. Okay.
and if you go to maps, there should be, and I hate this, GIS and
Oh,
maps.
they did it, right.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna bring you the map of the town.
Yep. Right.
You can click on a parcel, or you can put the owner's name. You can search by owner's name. It will highlight that parcel. You can go for the field card, and it will give you all the information.
Okay. All right.
Matter of
So
fact, I
field
think-
card is the key.
Yep.
Is the detail. Okay.
Yep, and you can get that right off the maps.
All right, let
Yeah.
let me share with you one other, just interaction I had, and these are two interactions in 14 years, so I haven't had a lot of discussions about tax rate, okay? But about a half a mile away from where I and this neighbor live is a classic older home in Lancaster that's really, on the outside, looks very nice, okay? I have no idea what's on the inside. It's a reasonable size home, pretty good size, I don't know. Probably 3 to 4 bedrooms, I think. I don't know how many bathrooms. Classic, beautiful place. And it has a big horse farm connected to it. And some number of acres of land that there are horses on. Okay, because I see them when I walk past. Okay? This is not the average size piece of land to mow. This is a horse farm, and it has always been that way. A few years ago, that home and all of that property sold in a transaction in the market for basically the big number, $1 million. Okay? Okay, it sold for $1 million between a willing buyer and a willing seller.
Yeah.
My neighbor talked to me about that transaction and said to me, there's no way that house is worth $1 million. That's crazy. That's nuts. No one should ever pay $1 million for that house. They should never, they should never have done that. And there's no way they can assess that for anywhere near close to $1 million. I looked at him for a moment and said, no, wait. It's sold in the market. Okay.
Mhm.
Between a willing buyer and a willing seller. If it's sold for that price, that's what the house is worth. That's the market value. Well, And my concern was and thought was that maybe the person was concerned that that particular house it's a half mile or more away from ours, might impact on the value of our houses. I mean, none of us have horse farms. None of us have horses. None of us have anywhere near that kind of acreage. Okay. And all of our homes are not in the same class as that one. Okay. So you would apply some judgment. I wouldn't think the assessors would do a linear, oh, well, the whole neighborhood goes up, kind of thing by big numbers. But it was just interesting that the person seemed to be pushing back because they were concerned not with, is that the value that's sold for, but it may have impact on me. And I don't like the impact. So therefore, maybe I'm pushing back saying, I don't think that's fair. Okay. That sometimes people push back on fairness because they don't like what the impact might mean for their home. My observation was, it was a market transaction. That's what the house is worth in the market. And we go from there.
You got somebody who paid $1 million.
Yeah, right. And the assessors will factor this in. I don't know exactly how they'll do it, but they clearly can see none of us have got horse farm acreage. None of us have got a big older home. None of us have got plus a barn. And I don't think it's going to have a massive impact on our assessed values. Right. And Debbie is shaking her head, probably won't. But it was an interesting reaction.
So maybe we look at having more clarity on how that outside assessor, appraiser, and how things are assessed. Like if there's a mechanism by which we can have clarity or help people understand a little better. I don't know.
Yes, I think that's a good idea.
Because I think things are fine the way they are because I trust that the appraiser and Bobby Joe are and they have assessors meetings, where you can come and ask.
Go ahead.
The thing that I think there should be a push for this group to think about. And we put it out there that all this information is out to go look at.
Mm-hmm.
If you have an issue with the value and you want to file for an abatement, give us the name of those properties, show us them, and have us take a look at.
Is it a formal application?
Yes.
Okay. So
There is, and it's right on the back of the tax bills. You can apply for an abatement on your real estate taxes. You only have a 30-day window, and you've got 30 days from when that third quarter bill goes out, your actual bill.
From the third quarter bill, not from each bill?
Third quarter. Your first two bills, July and October, are preliminaries.
Oh, okay.
All it is that it's taking what you paid last year,
That's
dividing, and you're paying them now.
Okay.
Your actual fiscal tax bill is January 1st. That has your updated values and the updated tax rate.
Okay.
You have 30 days, so right on that tax bill, it states the deadline for applications. There is a packet that goes with the application for information to come in. You can't just write, because I can tell you as a board member, if somebody files an abatement and says, I'm overvalued, what do you think it's worth? I can't tell you that. I'm not, unless you give me information as a board member, I can't. I looked at the card, it looks right. Well, yeah, it's right. Well,
So could someone say, I think I'm overvalued compared to these 3 houses?
and
So
give us
would
that
be-
information and we
That
can
would be
look at it.
appropriate. Okay, that's helpful to understand. Go ahead.
We did, I mean, we asked for an abatement because
Yep.
there are different size houses on Wall Street and
Yes.
different, I have a
Yep.
nice house. But 2 of my neighbors have a ton of land, and they have big, much, like, my house is not small, but they have much bigger houses. One of them has an in-law apartment, the other one I have not been through it, but I know they have 6 bathrooms, like 2.5. And they
Okay.
have like 10 whatever acres of land, and we're like, how come our rate is so high and theirs isn't? And we did get them.
Okay.
But some of the things they told us impacted value, which is the assessor thing. I don't really understand how it works, but like, so we have 6 firehouses.
They don't work.
Two
Two of them work?
Some of them work. Yeah.
Okay.
One chimney is completely dead. It does not. We have a carriage house, and that's considered a barn, even though it's sort of not a barn, but whatever. This is the information that we got back because we asked those questions.
Mhm.
So, you know, I can say that we did
The
have this
process.
experience and asked about it because it is hard
Mm-hmm.
to understand why somebody with 10 acres of land and twice the size of mine and 6 bathrooms has a road. You know,
So with the land, seeing that you brought this up, with the land for 10 acres, first 2 acres are front. That's a standard value, yours or theirs.
well, I don't.
Well, okay, I'm just saying a 2 acre base, you would go down, theirs would go to the full 2 acre value.
Okay.
After that, the balance of the 2 acres, the 8 acres, would be residual at a much lower rate.
Right,
Because
because
you
it's
can't
not
do
affecting the
anything.
house.
You
It's
can't
not
do anything
assessing-
with
It's
it.
not, it's only adding to the sale of the house, but only by a certain percentage,
And you
not
can't-
the value of the house.
You can't put
Okay.
another house on there, you can't really do anything with it. So it's a residual. So it's
Okay.
not as a prime lot. And for your 1 acre, you start at 2, and you decrease value, but it's very minimal. It's not like a standard, well, if you've got an acre or 2 acres at 200,000, then an acre should be at 100,000. That's not the way the table works.
Okay.
And then the bathrooms and stuff like that?
Bathrooms are valued separately. Half baths versus full bath.
Right, sure.
You know,
So
if you have a full bath, I'm teaching this class. If you have a full bath and say the newer homes has a shower, a tub, 2 sinks, and a toilet. That's considered a full bath with 2 extras.
Full bath with 2 extra, what's
Pieces.
extras?
Pieces,
2 extra pieces.
yes. So a full bath's considered a shower tub, sink, and toilet.
So
And you
all
have
of
an
that
extra-
is shown on the house that you live in. That's all
That's
in the
all
system,
listed on that system.
calculated in there.
So if you have an extra sink, and what was the other?
So if you have 2 sinks,
Yes.
and you have a shower over here and a tub over here, separate, that tub or shower is an extra.
Okay.
So it would be a full bath with 2 extras.
Full bath with 2 extras, okay?
Who knew?
Who knew? Right, well, thank you, appreciate that. Heidi, did you want to make any more comments about tax fairness from your perspective?
I mean, I think the way that we do it, although there's some obscurity to me for the specific details of how that stuff
Any
happens,
louder, so I don't think.
it makes sense to me that you know, you have more stuff that with a bigger house and stuff like that, that you would pay more. That said, though, I think that there's also, in terms of tax fairness and Lancaster, it's super stressful that we passed the override, even though I voted for it and I understand why we had it and I didn't disagree with it. And it's super stressful that taxes are gonna go up because of the school, even though again, I voted for it and I agree with it and I won't actually.
Yeah, there's nothing
that
to
off.
do.
But that I know that that's what we need to do, but the reality is that a very significant percentage of our taxes goes to education, which I support, but at the same time, like, it's a lot. Like, it's a lot. I understand how the tax bills work, but our January tax bill is like rough.
Oh, I'm sure, and it's not gonna get any better as
And it's not gonna get
you all
any
know.
better.
And I'm sorry, go right ahead. Finish.
Just
Finish
like
your thought.
I don't know how we can't really decide a lot of these things, but I think that I'm not the only person that feels that way, that it's just a lot to look at and worry about what it's gonna be next. And, you know, we don't wanna walk back on education, but what else can we do to make this work? Because that feels unsustainable.
And the
Okay.
the cost has been going up. School systems has always been a large impact of budget. Ever since I started working in that office and budget time would come. For the cost then and the cost now, it's still going, and it's
The biggest percentage.
yeah.
Oh, it's 2/3.
Yeah.
That's what it was last year. I forget which, I don't have the percentage this year. Okay, off the tip of my
So
tongue.
that's what I'm saying is that
With the high school, it's gonna go up.
Yeah.
Even more.
Right.
My rough calculation is when we're fully paying the loan value for the steady state loan value for the high school, we'll be somewhere in the 75%. 75% of our budget will go to schools. To take Heidi's phrase, it feels unsustainable. You know, it's like if, you know, one of us had a house and we were paying 60% of our income for the house. Most budget people will say, you can't afford that because you've got food and you've got cars and you've got insurance and other things you need to do. You can't pay that percentage. At 77%, I am concerned like you, Heidi, that the amount we're paying for schools, which I value and I think are important, but that feels unsustainable over the long term.
which is kind of like years ago when they went from whatever the lot acreage for when you were a contractor, and they went to 2 acres.
Mm-hmm.
Part of the theory of that is that you're trying to reduce the amount of housing and development going on, right? Because of the more houses you have, the more children there are going to be. And maybe we want as a town to have more open space and so on. So that was good. But now we're in a position where, for instance, with DCAM, which I harp on again and again, like, why would we do anything with DCAM that would increase, you know, additional, you know, like over 55 is a need as we trend, you know, but we need denser housing in, like, you know, for like affordable housing type scenario. You can't get affordable housing with a 2-acre lot, you know, and so it becomes now we're having to rethink what we're doing simply because it's not sustainable. So you don't want more students, but you want more revenue. How do you get more revenue? Well, it's the 55 plus that don't have kids. Because if they're leaving town, then they're not contributing. So we've got this situation where we really have to think differently. And we've got to allow for some denser housing structures that would increase our benefit. Like, you know, like I look at Blue Heron and I just think it's the cutest little place. the density is there, you know, it's a sustained group, you know, seniors can talk to each other, walk
Yep,
around, you know, it's not like my neighborhood, my God, you know,
Yeah,
I never
no.
see my neighbors, you know, kind of thing. So that becomes the problem, and seniors need that socialization and all those reasons. So why aren't we encouraging more over 55s to get revenue, to get the income of their taxes? Encourage them to move to town, but we're not adding to, because
You're not adding the school
the
system.
school system. And I know you can't say that publicly, you know, kind of thing, but if we control the property, we can send out, I mean, I'm not the expert, but you know, there was people but from my logic, I don't understand the sustainability over long term without, you know, if we control the narrative and we control the land, we send out the bids and ask the contractors to bid, you know. So that's just a thought in along those lines, because how do we get revenue any other way? All we can do is control our expenses because we're not getting additional things coming in.
And you have multiple values of things we're trying to achieve here. One is we're trying to increase our tax revenue without dramatically increasing our school costs, education costs, is one point. The other side of it is there is a need for more affordable housing in the Lancaster area. There are people who are looking for homes, and they need a lower priced home footprint because they can't afford the bigger one. And we need, you know,
we need like a 1,200 square foot type housing that allows people to have affordability. They don't need 2,400. You know, they don't need 2 acres of land.
Right.
So we need to really think about,
families,
you know,
how do you do
that
issue. And then you've got even people who can't afford, you know, a single family home, they need to be in apartments.
Yeah.
And how do we do that?
But we have none. We don't have a system for incorporating that here because we've zoned it such that that's not really an option. So, you know, I'm sorry, we're wrong.
No,
I'm just watching the time here a little bit. Okay, I want to see if there's any other comments on this in terms
Dick,
of general.
you're probably asleep now.
Yeah, Dick, are you
Do
there?
you want to chime in on your idea of tax fairness? What does it mean to you?
I'm here. I couldn't hear your question now.
Oh, repeat the question. Go ahead.
We went around and asked each of us what we consider tax fairness. What does it mean to you? And we're asking your opinion.
Yeah. It's rather simple with me. I'm afraid it may be too simple. It is that you pay your fair share, legal fair share, without trying to pass off any portion to another entity without their permission. It's as simple as that. You have to pay your fair share. If someone else is willing to pay it for you, get their permission. And I think that'll follow with this because the people who are going to have to pay for the senior people will get to vote on it at a town meeting, and therefore they will give their okay or their no. So the question is with the people, not with us.
But I think you're referring to SME and to the seniors.
But I'm also,
I think what we're asking is, what is your impression of tax fairness?
On a real estate tax.
I'll take it to the next step if you like. It's still the same. And what bothers me is that any way to get out of taxes by shifting it to someone else simply increases the amount that you're hoping you can pass on to your next of kin, because you will not use your valuation, your resources in your home. You want someone else to pay for it. I'm opposed to that. There are enough ways to save money on taxes. Now, the next question that you've been all discussing is expenses in school, et cetera, like that. That plays into it a great way too. But as far as one person versus another, it's paying your fair amount without trying to pass it off to someone else.
Okay.
And that means using your own resources before you use someone else's.
Okay. All right, any other last comments on this topic? Yes.
I just want to throw one more thing out. When we talk about how this town's getting unsustainable tax-wise and budgets and everything else.
Right.
I just want to bring this to the committees. Just there is over 45% of the town of Lancaster that is exempt from taxation. So that's including the town's buildings, towns, but also all the other exempt organizations. If you're looking at value, you're talking about over 1,377, 806, 820 in value. Times that by, I'm sorry.
One more time.
1,377, 806, 820. So that value is not taxed.
This is.
that one
What is that again?
Billion.
1 billion.
1
Okay,
billion.
so 1
Oh,
billion.
that's what's not taxed, okay.
Right.
Tax.
1,377,000.
So you have assessment
We
values
have
of
to
that.
assess,
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's
All
how
land.
much.
Even
right.
though you can't. we
taxable or
tax
not.
it.
So that's how you come up with the 45% because
No.
you need to come up, you need to
45% is how much square feet in the town of Lancaster is
Oh.
not.
know 45%
Debbie.
square feet.
Yes.
Okay.
Debbie, isn't the total valuation of the town only 2 billion something? 2 billion one? That's $1.3 million is $1.3 billion
Okay.
is more than
You're right.
45%.
So it's tens, thousands.
So
It's 1,377,806,820. Oh my God, my brain just fried. What's that?
So
One?
that's
1,377,860.
1 billion.
Could you just
That's
reverse the
square
two?
miles.
If that's
No,
the
no.
value, that
That's
could be the value of the assessed, of the
Oh,
taxable.
sorry, you're
value.
right, you're right, you're
Right,
right.
you just switched it. Okay, right.
Okay,
That
So-
looks like
scratch that.
55% of it.
So the exempt valuation, I'm looking at the wrong line,
The
is
exempt value-
183,235,900.
So
83,235,900.
is what now?
Is exempt from tax
Exempt. Okay.
in value.
Debbie, does that include 61A and all the other?
No, it does
things?
not. No, this is just property that is not taxed. It's exempt property. It's your schools, it's town property, it's conservation land, it's forestry land, it's schools, YMCA,
Prisons.
prisons, thank you. Bolton Fair,
Churches.
the churches, the housing.
Atlantic Union
authority.
College, I assume, would be in
What?
Atlantic Union.
Atlantic
College.
Union College is off. They pay taxes for
They-
everything.
They pay taxes now. How long have they been paying taxes?
Let's see, 4 years on the campus. The residential buildings since 15, 16, 16, I think. They've been paying tax on the residential buildings.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, because they didn't qualify for exemption. Well, yes. Let's just make it simple. Yes, because they lost their accreditation, so they weren't using the property for the exempt purposes.
Yes. It
And that's
makes
since
sense.
2019?
I think it was 16 when the residential buildings came online for taxes, and then the campus, I want to say around 20.
Okay.
Science
Just
building, all the
approximately,
just
administration, all
ballpark.
that.
Got it.
Right, okay.
So they are paying taxes.
Oh,
but-
yeah.
So 45% of the town is exempt from taxation on the land.
Yep. on
Square
all the
footage of
property.
land, okay.
Square footage.
Yeah,
Okay.
and buildings.
So what does that,
Okay, yes.
it's just a factor, but,
Is that a problem? The towns have that all over town.
No.
No?
And, well, you gotta understand, we also have Devons involved in this. Not for value, but square footage. Fort Devens, even though it's closed, as far as
well, it's
we've
National
got,
Guard now, National Guard.
we've got over
Yes.
4,375 acres of land.
4,375 acres.
Yep, and that's somewhat of an asset.
But the thing is that the percentage, oh, okay, this is potential money,
That we're
but
not
it's
getting.
not hurting Lancaster, because we're not
Providing
providing
services.
services, or they're not adding students, they're not,
Mhm.
maybe the church is a fire issue, like if they had the fire
When you
building.
get a chance, Debbie, I have a question for you.
Yeah, go ahead. Go
Go ahead,
ahead.
Dick.
Oh, I'm sorry, okay. You and I have had discussions over the years about valuations.
Yes.
What is our current open space valuation? Still $7,500?
I want to say yes, Dick.
Okay. And
You
at
mean-
one point,
you
I
mean
remember when
those-
you and I had a long discussion about what we call solar fields. And that you mentioned to me that the state had given permission to towns to charge, I think it was $67,000, could have been 61,000 per acre for solar land, except for maintenance land, which was still open space. Am I anywhere near correct in the recollection of that conversation?
Yeah, yes, I don't know if those numbers have changed because we did go through a revaluation since I've
All
been
right,
gone.
so are we charging, and I already know the answer, but are we charging $67,000 per acre for solar thing?
I can't say for sure, Dick, because I don't specifically know. You'd have to go in and look at a field card.
Well, the answer is, I think, and I'm not contradicting you, I think the answer is no, because they have a contract, what they pay in lieu of taxes. So if they have that, then there wouldn't be an adjusted amount for the land, I would
Okay.
imagine.
The contract for solar fields is on the personal property, not land. You've got two different bills going out to a solar company. You've got the property value billing, and then you've got a personal property value billing. The contract that was agreed upon at town meeting for those solar fields individually are for personal property,
Okay, well,
not
I'm
on,
concerned
not
that
on
we
the
are
real
not
estate.
charging enough for solar fields. I'm not opposed to solar, don't get me wrong. I'm just, that we're not charging enough for it, and I'm also, and this is another question to you,
Yep,
we have a long time discussed, especially on, what I call the capital property there, that people storing these trailers or these storage units. The amount that they're storing on there is equal to a damn building. And we're charging them just property storage, land storage. We're not charging them for storing a building there. How come that is not considered a building? The storage of their units on the field, or even the storage of trucks in the field.
I'm not sure what property, are we talking about a property that has those little trailers that they rent out for storage?
Well, if you're talking about the 10-foot pond road, no, because that's, I'm talking about that type of thing though, which is right next to the soccer fields on Hawthorne. It's not Hawthorne. What is that? The one by the Dunkin' Donuts runs into the back there.
Yeah, I thought that that's the new storage place, that was where they were temporarily and then they.
Well, they may be temporary, but look, they're stored there the whole year. They're bigger than a building. And we was just charging them bare ground prices for it.
Okay. If you're talking about that where, Warilla's junkyard used to be. And then he moved, but all those trailers that are sitting there that trucks back up and haul them out? Is that what you're talking about?
I think you and I probably need to have this conversation offline.
Yes,
Yeah.
right,
Okay.
okay,
All right, we'll
right.
With more definitive. I'm just concerned there are a number of things that we're not looking at that I believe are businesses that could be taxed properly that are not being properly taxed. How's that for duplicating your words?
All right, so areas/businesses that are not being properly taxed today.
I'll get in touch with you, Deb.
Okay, so getting back to this, so I appreciate that you're pointing out, yes, we all know that, that there's so much of our land that's not being taxed. But it's also not a burden to the town not having that land. It's opportunity is what that 45% is, opportunity to turn it into something that might be taxable. Well, but it's not costing, because my understanding is conservation land basically doesn't cost.
You gotta understand, there's buildings on some of this. So the Trivium School, they've got the school, they've got the house on there, Perkins School, all those buildings.
Mhm.
If they have an ambulance call, who pays for it? If they have a fire, who pays for it?
Okay, those circumstances, if there's an expense,
Half of that
then
property
that-
has buildings on it.
okay, so if it has a building, I'm thinking more like blank land, like we don't go up to Shirley Prison, we don't go into Devon's.
Yeah, you do.
Lancaster Hospital, Lancaster.
Ambulance
Ambulance,
goes to yeah.
go to Shirley Prison.
Interesting. And they don't pay any taxes to us for that.
Well, that's state owned. Oh, state owned.
State would never pay taxes to a town.
Mm-mm.
But do they
Oh, wait a
pay
minute.
for the
No,
ambulance?
I don't know how that works.
Yeah.
I have no idea how that works.
Okay,
I just thought I'd throw that out.
all right. Interesting, I appreciate the engagement.
Yeah, it's healthy,
You know,
because
right,
it's how
right.
we learn, like we're all
Sure,
like
right.
trying to come up with
Let's put
ideas.
it this way, if we being relatively involved taxpayers in town find this helpful and we're learning more stuff, think about what other people who aren't as engaged as, we are, would be helpful for them to understand some of this. So let's wrap up here. In terms of the next meeting, a question here I want to ask. You started to give us a kind of a impromptu course on how property is assessed in Lancaster, okay? Would it be worthwhile at either the next meeting or one down the road here to have maybe you and Bobby Joe do a presentation to us to kind of explain this a little bit more?
The sad thing is, it's gonna take a lot more than just a 2-hour thing.
Yeah.
There are so many pieces into this valuation process. There's no way. You wanna go to take a 101 and a 201 and all those courses, that's fine. But this isn't a 2-hour, Bobby Joe and I just, this is how.
Okay.
There is, the majority of what I told you, bathrooms, square footage, finished basements, air conditioning, type of heat, extra pool, shed, those other things, size of land. Those are the basics. But then you get down into age of house, the grade of the house, the condition of the house. So those all take a piece. I don't know how.
Right.
Yeah, because I think that, there is a mechanism by which somebody can, ask to get it changed. Like they're doing their best to come up with that value. And if you don't like it, then there is a mechanism by which you can do this, application for abatement. And, but understanding all those details isn't necessarily in our
Okay,
purview.
but,
you know.
okay, but yeah, and I
You
would,
can go in and ask and learn and go to the state level and take all kinds of courses on it.
yeah, I guess rephrasing my first question would be something like, would it be worthwhile to give us I'm gonna say, the 101 course and a what to do if you have questions that, so it's clear and we get it documented and we can share that with,
The back of the
People
thing
in-
says application for abatement,
Your tax bill says everything. All the exemptions are out there, when to file for
And I don't
abatement.
think we don't-
And if you don't like what the assessors gave you, or
There's the state level, the
you
next.
go to you go to the appellate tax board.
Yeah.
And the appellate tax board is their own board.
So what I'm trying to say is, like, we as this committee, if we felt like, or that there was meat underneath, that there was some wrongdoing or something that isn't correct, then yes, I would say that there's a tax fairness issue, because it's not fair to all the homes. But they're doing their due diligence of trying to come up with that.
okay,
And I don't know whether, unless you're gonna dig specifically into appraisals and, all of that in order to make it fair, because what does tax fairness mean? Paying your fair share, like Dick says, and what else can we do for tax fairness?
So basically, you've got your value by market. Whatever willing buyers willing to pay for that property. You go to town meeting, they spend the money. That comes back and there's your tax bill.
okay.
That's the simple portion.
Okay, I guess one of my questions is this. I understand if a property has sold recently, that's the market value read, okay? If a property hasn't sold in a while and you have some market data on other houses, how do you decide where in that range of those other houses to put this one over here that hasn't sold for several years?
When you're looking at all those spreadsheets of the type of house, the age of the house, the square footage,
Is
those,
there a formula for that, or is it?
yeah, but
There is?
it's not something that I can give you.
Right. It's part
It's
of this
part
outside
of this
appraiser
whole
and Bobby Joe
package.
Yeah.
It's not how do I put this? It's not a simple 1, 2, 3. It's 1, 2, 3, 10, and it's just so many pieces into it. The basics is market and what you've got in that property. And that's it. But
I don't know why are you thinking you need to dig deeper into this? What is your
Well,
thinking?
because,
You want to educate the public? Is that what
Yeah,
you're
I
thinking
had
along the
two-
lines?
Two questions
know,
on
is
my,
You know,
okay,
because you can simply state, like, if you're not happy with what you're paying,
Right.
look at the back of your taxes and fill out the application.
okay, and I guess a couple of thoughts here. One is, there clearly is a perception in Lancaster.
but it's a perception in every single town.
Oh, okay, well, wait, okay, let's try to work this through.
Okay.
There's a perception in Lancaster that quote taxes aren't fair. It was before I got here, before any of us got here.
It's always been, yeah.
But
All
what
right.
are you saying, fairness,
What-
taxes aren't fair because I'm paying too much? Or
Well,
my
okay.
house is paying too much compared to somebody else's
Yeah,
house?
and
That's a
Susan-
difference.
Susan,
There's a
let
difference.
me finish the thought, okay? Okay, all right. So and that's why the committee was formed, was because there is a perception that quote taxes in Lancaster aren't fair, quote unquote. Now, I don't know completely why. I shared with you a couple of anecdotes from experiences that I've had. And I agree, Susan, that I think some people feel that, quote, my taxes aren't fair because they keep going up. Okay. And I personally don't think the fact that your taxes are going up has anything to do with fairness.
Exactly.
Okay, and I totally agree with that. But I think we as a committee need to do some things to understand why people feel that they are unfair and see what we can do to help them understand how, that taxes are fair and how they taxes are determined would be a helpful thing for some people, because if they understand, and that is, they're independent outside people who do this, there is a formula. It could be very complex, and we may not cover it all and anything like that, but there is a formula or some kind of process by which it gets determined. And I guess I'll make this one other comment. There may be an area, because in my sense, if you have a percentage of homes of a given type of the Capes that have sold recently, I understand how those homes that have sold have a specific market value, no question. And whatever they sold for, that's it. You don't have a problem. Okay. Of the other Capes that are there, you have to apply some judgment factors in order to determine what that new value of this house is. Correct?
No, because if those sold for a certain amount of dollars, these Capes are gonna come in with that pile. No ifs, ands, or buts about it.
But let's say there were 20 Capes that sold.
Yes,
They sold for a range of prices.
yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And it could be, it's a range. I don't know what it is. So let's assume that it's significant. It's non-trivial. It's not $5,000. It's $100,000. Let's say. Okay. How do you take the data of those 10 sales with $100,000 in difference for those numbers and apply it to 300 Capes and decide what the individual value of
because
those
there's
Capes
a
is?
formula for doing that.
So
That's what
Well,
he
but that's
said.
what I just asked a minute ago.
So when
she said-
you're looking at those Capes, you're also looking at square footage, years built. So
So-
the 350, as I said, the 350 Cape sold. The 340 Cape sold.
Mhm.
Okay?
Right.
You start looking at the square footage on those, maybe that 350 has a pool in the backyard.
Yep.
Which would
Sure.
make a difference.
Yeah, I agree.
But maybe it doesn't, but still, when you're looking at them, the square foot is bigger on the Cape, they've got a finished basement. The 340 doesn't have a finished basement. You've got to start looking at those other Capes, do they have finished basements? And work on that. So
Roy,
it's just all,
It's all calculated. In other words, each home then, there's under the assessor's office, the data for your house has all of those criteria already set.
Okay.
So then when they come up with the number, whether you have, they'll add like 0.5% for more land, a minus for this. And that formula is already
Okay.
put
And
into the system.
let me ask this question. Okay. Is that a formula that you can plug the
No.
numbers in? No. Okay.
It's
So
in
then,
the back, it's in the system. It's not something I can go in and just pull out, but it's
Okay.
all calculated in the
Right.
system.
And-
okay. Then I don't.
The outside appraiser doing this as an
Mhm.
outside. Then the state comes in and looks at
I
how they did those calculations. So it's not just our town and our bias or this appraiser's bias. It is then put to the test because the
Here's-
state then has to oversight what they have done.
Okay. Here's my question. Okay. I understand on these houses that have sold, and to some extent, if there is a pure equation that applies it to the other houses that didn't sell, come up with their value. I can understand that. Okay. And that would be fair. Here's the equation and you just plug in the numbers. If there is some judgment that gets applied, I'm asking, is there? Is that-
Judgment in,
judgment in the sense of, well, yeah, this one, yeah, we, because of the, I don't know, the landscaping, because, which is maybe not a factor, maybe is or isn't a factor, because of the, I don't know, the way it's decorated inside, the
No.
furnishings. No, that's got nothing to do with it.
Nothing to
You're
do with
dealing
it.
with just building.
it's
Okay.
square footage and what's in that square footage.
Okay, so there are no judgment factors that the assessors apply. Okay, and that's what I was trying to get to.
The only,
Debbie,
The only
Yes.
time there's a judgment is if they file an abatement and you go out
But here,
and you see that that tape has still got the 1960 bathrooms.
Yep.
Where the other Cape sold for 350,000 has updated their kitchen,
okay,
updated, that's where the factors come in for age or condition. That would be the only time.
let's hear Heidi's comment
Okay,
here. You want
yeah.
to repeat that again, Heidi?
Well, I mean.
Right, well, it makes a difference
So
in
it would
terms of
make a
what
difference
these,
In terms of where those numbers apply. And then, I mean, when you say, I understand that there are lots of spreadsheets, but there's also software, right, that takes all of the.
Yeah, I assume so.
There is a, yes,
So
there
it's
is
got
a,
like, you know, a little, for my house, there's a little thing that says checkbox, I have a carrot house, checkbox, I have 6 fireplaces,
Correct.
checkbox, I have 2.5 bathrooms. And all of that information in the square footage goes in and has my acreage and whatever, and it spits out a number based on all the other stuff.
okay, I'll ask this one last question, then I'll stop and we'll wrap up the meeting. The houses. Beg your pardon, Dick?
Dick one.
I'm concerned that you're asking this question because the other side of this question is, other side of valuation is the amount of dollars that has to be raised. So are you then going to explain the whole budget too?
No, I'm not going there, okay?
Well, how can you not do one without the other if you're going to discuss?
Because I'm only trying to deal with assessed value. That's all I'm trying
Okay,
to do.
let me ask
That drives, let's put this,
Perception.
that drives perception, right? Assessed value is what drives perception because it's a simple
Well, you
calculation.
mentioned the schools. Schools is a budget.
Okay, Susan brought that up. Okay, let me finish this comment here, and then we'll look to wrap up here. Okay, Dick?
Because I want to ask Deb a question when you're done.
Okay, and that will be the last question. Okay, all right. The houses that sold, all of those in general were probably fixed up. So they have the improved bathrooms, et cetera, in them. And so now the house that has 4 bathrooms, the same amount of square foot, et cetera, that sold, has been refurbished and upgraded, okay? Compared to the one, maybe the same year it was built, but people have been living in it, and let's face it, you know, we all defer upgrading bathrooms and stuff like that. So you might wind up assessing this older home, this same age home.
Yep.
That hasn't been updated.
Yep.
At the price of the updated home that just sold because people updated to sell it.
Correct.
So doesn't that feel a little bit
And that's
unfair?
where I've always said to an owner, look at your field card. If you're not happy, come in. If we look at it and we say, okay, that shouldn't have been that value.
Mhm.
You file the abatement, the board looks at it. We go out, we take a look at your home. If that is true,
So the field card is online.
oh yeah, it's under that maps and,
Okay.
Yeah.
So you look at your field card and it would show you the year of the house was built, you know,
Sure.
the details. And if you, for instance, built a shed or what have you.
right?
those
But
things would
if
be
you
added on.
if you refurbish the bathroom, that might not be on the field card.
it may not.
But if you do an abatement, then the assessor will come in and they're gonna look at what you have.
Exactly.
And they're gonna say, it's this grade or that, or.
And there's
they
no
have-
way to universally like do this in a, you know, you punch in all the critical things you deal with, and that's what the abatement application really, I mean, the abatement application is like, well, look, you know, these are tweaking, you know, to make this more realistic to my specific house.
Right.
Whereas you
And
know,
we-
you're sweeping with, you know.
And you can't be specific. That's not what assessing is. Assessing value is over the board. It's not individual.
Right.
It's like an appraiser going out. Appraiser will do an individual appraisal.
Mhm.
We can't do that. Not unless there is an issue and a person comes in and says, look, I've got a cape. I haven't done anything to it. My value just went sky high. and we look at it and we'll say, okay, file an abatement. They give us all the information. We go out and look at it and we're going, okay,
So
they
home,
haven't done anything. And condition wise, it's not well.
yeah, so homes that haven't been updated are going to be at a assessment are going to be assessed higher compared to, because of the homes that just sold the same year, because those homes have been updated to sell. So those people particularly should file for an abatement.
If that is the case, yes, they should come in, we should look at it and file an abatement.
They need to pull other cards that are single home. It's not, you just like, I don't like what I'm paying.
Yeah, no.
I don't assess this.
I
You have to-
understand.
They have to look at other homes, look at other properties.
And get the
look at the
information.
card and say, I feel like I'm unfairly treated because my home is older.
All
So
right.
there is a mechanism. So when I think of tax fairness, I think this is all above board and the system works. And, how people have as a perception, there is already mechanism to do that. So is our role just to help explain to people,
That may be part of our role. Absolutely.
if that's what we're trying to do to help people understand that it is fair to everyone, that there's no sub-level, there's mechanisms by which people can apply if they qualify, and then there's abatements that they can do if they think that they're not being taxed fairly. But you can only do it in this 30-day window from January. So I can't do it now. I have to wait until January 1st.
On your
Next
fiscal year 25 bill, you have to file, and you've got that 30-day window.
So
Right.
we only have a 30-day
So,
window once a year.
educating the public about that window, and perhaps, some mechanism like, you have to have 2 or 3 other cards. You have to look at some other homes, it's up to the owner to
Give all information.
to provide some of this, and then they'll come out, and look at that specific property.
Yeah, and right, I think education may be a big part of what we need to do to help with this perception issue. I'll just make that comment. Now, Dick, you get the last word here tonight. Dick?
Oh,
Come with us.
I've had too many already. Deb,
Yep.
my understanding, and tell me if I'm wrong, is that valuation is done by an outside firm. Is that correct?
There is an outside firm that helps when it comes to values going into the Department of Revenue.
Okay,
And
and
calculate.
primarily, you are only involved, you as assessor and assessor assistant are primarily involved when it is, let's say, new construction under review or abatement, etc. You're not directly involved in each individual home's valuation each year. That is more done by the outside firm. Is that a correct or somewhat correct statement?
No, it's not, because just because you have an outside firm, the principal assessor is extremely involved in going over sales, values, plus doing all new construction building permits. That person does all the building permits. So it's hand in hand with the contractor.
Okay, so, but you aren't looking at all the homes on Burbank Lane to make an evaluation. So that's done pretty much by logarithms in a computer, is it not?
I'm not sure what you're.
I mean, pick any place. Let's move away from it for a minute. You've answered part of my question.
Okay.
The other part is you and I discussed many times the homes on what is not Outlook, Hilltop Road. There's 7 new homes there.
Yep.
They started out at $599,000. The last one sold for $899,000. You and I discussed this many times, and it came out that initially you were charging for taxes about 83.76% of the sales price. Now that happened to be those 7. Am I losing you? I see you shaking your head. We did discuss it. But
Well,
my point is that there is a building taxation, and then there is a in existence for a period of time valuation.
well, there is a time issue
Right.
there. If it's not 100% complete by June 30th, you can't assess them for the full value.
All right, and is 100% complete certificate of occupancy?
Yes, but if
Okay.
it's after that date, you can't grab them for it.
Right. Okay. All right. I'm sorry, Roy. I got it carried out there, but I got my answers, and I thank you, Deb.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Want to finish your
No,
sentence?
I'm good.
Okay.
So I
Fine.
guess my question is, where do we go from here? In other
Well-
words, you asked each of us what we thought tax fairness was. And really, what's the perception when they wrote our mission? What was it that they were, that's partly why you're gonna get back to Kate and Steve.
Getting back to Kate and Steve is a different question, okay?
So I guess my question is, what more is there for us to do?
Well, I think we need to spend a little more time, okay, because we talked kind of about what we felt relative to tax
Yes.
fairness, okay? But I will state it this way. There was clearly a perception that many people in Lancaster feel that the quote taxes aren't fair, all right? And I
Because
guess
they voted it on the warrant?
because they voted on the warrant.
But I
Yeah.
think the bulk of that was really about helping seniors stay in town.
I will say, I know that some of my neighbors voted for the tax fairness aspect. They feel that taxes aren't fair. I shared with you a couple of thoughts. Beyond that, I'd have to,
But what can we do to change
Okay.
it?
Exactly. I'm like, I don't know what you mean by like, what is the perception that there is tax fairness? In other words, legally, unless you're African American and been treated unfairly because like your article, or unless there's, some mumbo jumbo that's, happening behind the scenes that they aren't being treated fair. It's a simple formula of like, this is how much the town needs in order to, and it's based, and the assessor bases their tax numbers based upon the final budget and how much the budget is. So if people don't feel like their taxes are fair, then it's comes as part of the budget, is the way I look at it.
It's all what's spent.
Yeah,
well, okay.
it's not the taxes that are assessed.
No,
is
it's
what I'm
not
trying to
value.
say.
It's what they spend at town meeting. You're not getting enough revenue in town
Yeah,
to
so
cover the budget.
I don't know what we need to do more in order to prove what is tax fairness. But someone else is paying something different than what I should be paying. And the point is, like what Dick said is if this is what it costs to live in the town, to pay the town the amount that they need to run the town, then that is what you pay, what you owe. There is no, the idea about the word tax fairness makes me think someone is unfairly
Right, well, that's
someone's not
clearly-
paying their fair share or paying
That's-
more than their fair share. And I don't feel like that's the case.
Okay, and I understand your point, okay? Some other people say taxes aren't fair. Now, exactly what they mean by it,
Well, I think you need to ask specifically,
Right,
because
we
I'm
need-
not understanding what we need to do further from this
Okay.
point on.
and my
I have to agree with
suggestion.
you.
Okay,
I don't get it. I
All right.
just don't get it.
right, and it seems that there are two aspects of this. Is the tax fairness perception an issue of, and I'll just use this phrasing, for right now, a question about fairness relative to assessed value? Or is it an issue in terms of the taxes that I pay are too high?
Yeah.
And I think we need to figure out which of these, is it one or the other, or is it some combination of the two?
But you agree that it's only those two options. There really isn't some other mechanism by which fairness is measured.
Yeah, and I guess my perception would be yes, but I think we should get some more input from neighbors, and if we have to, we should get some kind of a little survey to get some information here.
Okay. I think we're going way down the rabbit hole that,
Uh-huh.
you know,
I agree.
this is out of control in my personal opinion.
Yeah, I don't, unless you get companies to come in and generate taxes into this town.
Oh, okay, I didn't
There's-
understand for a minute. Go ahead.
I mean, it's like me talking to my
No,
neighbor. My neighbor's screaming about her tax bill. This is ridiculous. Well, yeah, when I got there, my tax bill 6 years ago, it'll be 6 years, was $1,300. I am now paying $4,200.
Mhm.
Of course, I put a finished basement. I put
Well,
a half
yeah.
bath. But now I'm paying over $4,200. She said, this is, but look at what's selling in the neighborhood. I got a 2 doors down, exactly the same as mine, except I have the finish. She just sold for $330,000 within a day. She did nothing.
Mhm.
So, you know, people who do not do the work are going to think it's unfair.
Okay.
And I think that is really the bottom line.
Yes.
If you are not paying attention, if you do not ask questions, if you don't read the tax bill and see what the rules are for applying for an abatement, then
The
yeah,
only
you're gonna
thing
think
is-
it's not fair. And then some people are gonna think it's not fair because they don't think they should pay any taxes. And then they're just gonna have to move
It's
somewhere.
going up more at a
Well,
higher
you
rate.
know,
They-
or the town trash truck doesn't come up the street. Well, you knew when you bought, it wasn't going to.
Sure, and some people will say, we don't get the services that other towns get. Okay, therefore my taxes are too high. And what that's got to do with tax fairness is more an emotional connection on their part, from my point of view. I don't think of that as a full tax fairness issue. Okay, wow, we've gone way past.
And I'm okay with it, is because the discussions are good. You know, I think it's been good. I've learned a lot too, but I don't know that we as this committee are, other than educating the public, that we are going to present anything on a warrant, that we're going to modify. I mean, we can educate the people on circuit breaker. We can do those kind of things, the biggest bang for the buck. If the education is what is needed, if the piece of it that we could fulfill that, if people don't understand the mechanism by which that this
Right.
works for them, then that's a piece that I'm willing to say do. But in terms of digging deeper, the town has their responsibility for the budget, and it's
Right.
directly related to the assessors. And so I don't know that there's anything more along tax fairness line that we can do. All we can do is educate the public. But people bitch about their taxes like they bitch about the weather. Can you believe this? And like we said, if you're a senior and you've got these other expenses, they're still bitching about the taxes, even though their other expenses are far higher than what the tax bill is. They just, in principle, don't want to pay for more taxes. But it is your fair share. And if you want to stay in this town, this is what you have to pay.
Mhm, mhm. And
It's
I think that it may be that a big part of what we do, and maybe the largest part, I don't know, will be some education here relative to how taxes are, how assessed value is determined, how that factors into, the taxes and the budget. In terms of the budget is determined this way, here's how the assessed value is determined, these two come together. And that's how your taxes are determined. It is fair in terms of the process. No one is being treated in a biased way, okay? And taxes are going to go up because inflation and cost increases continue, okay? So maybe that's where we get to, all right?
and so if it's going to be a 2-year process on this SME by the state, then my vote would be, I think that the ad hoc, we've done what we needed to do, and that we should just dissolve until that comes up. We could go dormant. We could say in 2 years, if the 6 of us are still there, we want to get involved again, do it, or you just remove it as an ad hoc committee until the need comes up again. Because right now,
I don't,
I do not see why we need to continue meeting and continue having discussions, because the tax fairness, in my opinion, you know, it's perception. And like you said, is it either one? We can't do anything about the fact that if this is the cost, that the taxes are going up. Like, people know that, like, they know it, they know it's because of the high school, they know it's because of the override. It's not a mystery. So it's not anything we need to unravel. And if it's about the assessors, just a quick education sheet or a seminar by Kelly, you know, like they're doing the tax.
At LCC, you're thinking?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
like the way that they're doing the tax work off, you know, just a quick thing, like, this is how your house is assessed, this is how you can do an abatement. Like 30-minute, you know, rundown, like, hey, you don't like what you're paying in taxes? You know, this is how you can do an abatement. And this is the deadline. And not doing it now, because in essence, you can't do anything about it.
no,
If you don't wait, we do this in November for like when your January taxes come, because they'll be bitching at that point when the high school numbers start coming on there. So if we do it and time it in a way that they can do something about it, doing it now does nothing. If you can only use that window, then you better do it during that window and make the classes and the thing. So just working with Kelly to create a program in the time frame that's not Christmas or something.
Well, yeah, it'll be-
You know, that's what I'm saying. I don't know whether November or something like that, but if we just get that, if we bring that to her attention, get it on her radar and her schedule, we're done. You know, I don't see why we need to keep meeting.
Okay, I hear your point.
I agree.
All
How
right.
do you feel?
Roy, there's one last thing. I'm worried about your education statement, because if you look at the state of Massachusetts, and I'll give you some figures that aren't exactly accurate, but they're close. The average student in Massachusetts was $14,141.
Mhm.
The average cost at Neshoba in that district was $14,499. Now, those figures aren't exactly that, but they're very, very close. That means we're exactly in the middle of the cost of education. So, what does that mean? That if we are paying average education and getting a good education out of it, that it is 65% of our town's costs. It means that the balance of the costs that are not education are held down. Otherwise, all you got to do is expand the town costs and you can reduce your education percentage, which is a ridiculous thing to say, but which is true.
Correct.
But the reverse is that if we are an average paying education, we are below average then on running a town. And people need to know this.
Can you repeat that, Dick? I lost it for a minute.
If we are an average cost per student for education, $14,499, and we think that that represents 65% of our budget and it's too much, then the reason it's such a high number is because the rest of the budget is low, not too high. If you increase the budget by $10 million and it were non-school, you'd be down to 50% for cost of education. You don't want to do that. That's not what it is.
Right. No one is proposing that, Dick.
But the point is, we keep saying education. Yeah, the new school costs a lot. And yes, education does cost a lot. But to call it 65%, which is true, is an indication that we're running the town pretty doggone close to what's needed. We're not overspending.
Exactly.
That's my point.
Exactly. So that's the point, is that the perception is like, people don't realize, like, you know, they're trying to run the town efficiently. The majority of the cost is the school, and therefore you know, you gotta pay your fair share if you live in this town towards the cost of that student education. That, because the state, that's the way it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, so
All
I
right.
don't know what more, I just don't know. I mean, you know me, I tell it just like it is. So I don't want to, you know, all of us put in our time. You're coming from all the way up north. You know, Heidi's doing a lot of work with, you know, the minutes. And I just don't think that there's more that, I think that we should propose to the select board that we disband. Especially hearing, like if I saw it as 8 months and we were just around the corner, maybe we hang in there. But if it's going to be that long, I agree with you, don't propose anything, because it's just gonna undermine what they're doing. And I think that what we did was undermine what the state is gonna do.
Oh, the state, okay.
And it's double the work, and we don't even know what's gonna happen, and whatever we propose probably would cost the town more money, no matter what we did.
Well-
Circuit breaker is the one thing that we really did good on, and that pushing that is all we can do.
Never mind the fact, if we did go ahead and create something, you'd still have to bring in legal to look at it.
Oh, sure.
I mean, and the time and
It's not worth it.
no.
So I don't know whether you want to wait till Sheila or what you're thinking for next meeting, but I would love to, at the next meeting, have a vote on what people think in terms of whether we should continue. And if there's a need, if there's something specific that you want to look at, you know, but I think like educating the public on the assessors is something Kelly can do. That's a program that can, you know, the assessors can come in and give a program. That's something we can ask them to do and walk away, make a recommendation. We don't have to manage it. We don't have to authorize it. We just say, what we concluded was people think it's on, the second part of that is people think that their house is not assessed fairly. And this is a way for them to, you know, if they think they're paying too much and it's because their neighbor's house isn't as much, then let's just go through the education, and then that's how we solve the perception of tax fairness. And if they don't show up at LCC and they don't care to get their butt out of their house to go listen, then that's on them.
Yeah, that's on them.
Because it's on the back of their thing.
It's no different than the taxpayer. Any taxpayer can walk in and look at it. It's online, so they can go in and look at it. But do you know how many that come in and complain about, well, I'm paying taxes for water? Well, no, you're not even in the water district, and that's separate. It is. They don't even know what the tax bill, and this has been ongoing for years.
Yeah.
No matter how much you try and
Educate
them, it's like people think when you pay your excise bill, where does money go?
The excise?
Yeah.
The excise tax?
Yeah.
I presume it goes to the town.
Bingo. You know how many people think it goes back to the state? And oh, by the way, where do you think the tax bill information comes from?
Which, for the excise tax?
Yeah. The amount of money, the valuation, the information, who owns it. Where do you think that comes from?
I think that comes from the state because they.
It comes from the registry. Do you know how many people
Okay, all right. Fine.
think it comes from us?
Well, okay, but that,
And no matter how much you try and educate them, they just,
okay,
like they don't-
when I view that aspect as a minor detail in terms of comes from the registry or whatever, but the taxes go to
But they think
town.
it goes to the state or something else, you know,
But
they
my-
don't realize that it's going to the town.
right, my point is that you know that, but do you know how many people in
I
town
don't.
don't?
I don't.
And no matter how much you try and educate, they don't keep it, and they don't care. So I have to.
Okay, all right. I hear your points. We will take this discussion up at the next meeting. Okay? Anyways.
Can we get
Okay.
And
Hang on
I
a
make a
second.
motion to.
Yeah, can you make a motion to adjourn?
Dick or,
No, you.
I thought you said, I
No.
make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, can you do the roll call, Heidi?
Oh, my God. Yes.
Yes.
Dick?
Yes, I guess I heard my name somewhere.
Roy,
Yes,
Heidi.
okay.
Woo!
All right.
It would be fun to say no, just so we.
I want to know if Haiti is a court reporter.
I need to know.
All right, we are adjourned.